Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, here to talk about the Challenge 39 Battle for a New Champion. For the most part, this video is a compilation of my weekly recaps that I've edited to be more of a full season recap and review, so hang back to the end for my thoughts on the season. If you like the video, give it a like and subscribe, and the best way for you to support my channel is to get your Paramount Plus through my link in the description where you can get started with P Plus for free. So let's dive into talking about episode 0, which I'm covering for the first time now because I had no clue where to watch it, but I finally found it on MTV. For the most part, it was a waste of time introducing people one by one, but there was some fun with the fresh batch of non-champs arriving with dreams of becoming the next champion, and they're introduced to the first of many countdowns that will never lead to anything interesting. They have to solve a big puzzle as a group to unlock food and drinks, but we do get important relationships being pointed out, with Michelle saying she's going to protect Jay. They all work on their puzzle, but who really cares? There's a cute scene of Chauncey and Amber back at home with their baby Sunny, and this would end up being the best content Chauncey has on the whole season. Corey gives what will become his mission statement for the season.
I want to just show everyone that gay people are not weaker.
They get their food and drinks and turn the arena into the club. I'm sorry, but this looks so fun. Big T points out she's done the most seasons of anyone, and she and Melissa introduce that they're besties, which will be very important. The USA alliances that are fleshed out here are pretty much along season lines, as half of them were on season 37 and the other half from 38, with Michelle being the only person who was on both, which sets her up pretty nicely. Michelle and Callum meet and it's love at first sight. She's down bad. Also, I never noticed this until now, but Callum is wearing Michelle's sweater in the confessional. Melissa and Asif bond over being parents, which will be really important later as well. This episode is actually really good, and it was a shame that it was so hard to find. They play spin the bottle, and there's guys kissing guys, girls kissing girls, girls kissing guys.
Everybody's getting along. So nice. I'm actually here for the drama and chaos.
So let's dive into episode 1, titled Teamwork Makes the Perfect Work. So apparently the challengers have spent the night in the arena, so they're all waking up hungover in the sand. Big T is back and she wants to prove that she doesn't suck. Asif says he's there to take souls. Melissa is back too, and her sweet daughter Vienna is 3 now. This opening scene is chaotic with flashbacks, flash forwards. So they all wake up in the arena in the sand, and TJ shows up, and Jessica says seeing TJ is euphoric and an angelic halo comes over TJ. King and Queen, Horacio and Olivia are back. He says that he's back for his revenge. Some would say that he's back for his vengeance. Michelle, who we last saw like 2 weeks ago on the Challenge USA, says her relationships are going to hopefully help her, and Berna hopes they're playing as individuals. Callum says that he had an easy ride on his season of Challenge UK, and he kind of did. He literally did nothing and then lost his final. TJ points out that none of them are winners and none of them are rookies, which is a good mix, and TJ tells us there will only be one winner this season, which is such crap. I kind of hate that. To start off, the final is worth $300,000 with an opportunity for them to raise it to $500,000 along the way. TJ says this season will be divided into levels: control, where they can win money; chaos, when they can protect the money; and conquest, where they might earn even more. This is confusing and nonsense. Basically, I predict that they'll gain and lose money along the way, and eventually production just somehow makes it $500,000. Along the way, they'll all be competing as one team to get the money. The first challenge is called Hole Control. What a name. They'll need to go into a muddy hole, get poles to make a puzzle, and complete it in 10 minutes to earn money for the prize pot. They strategize together. Kieran takes charge. Berna wants to help, but nobody's listening to her. Asif says teamwork makes the perfect work, and I guess he said the thing, and this episode title is still better than all of the episode titles on the Challenge USA. They all run into the mud pit, and it's disorganized chaos. Chauncey has a confessional shouting out his champion partner Amber at home and their new baby. Berna tries to help and give advice, and nobody is listening to her once again, but she's also being really annoying and relentless about it. Michelle, Queen of Puzzles, figures out the puzzle is to spell out challenge. The women start figuring out the puzzle. When it comes to the last 2 people in the mud pit, they have to pull up 2 guys at once, and Kieran climbs up Jay's hanging body. For a while, it really looked like they were going to rip Jay in half, but then Callum grabs Kieran's hands, and Kieran is hanging on like Mufasa. After they're done help me brothering, they end up getting Callum up, and it's very satisfying. Emmanuel is spending the $50K in his head from this challenge, and then they realize the puzzle is nowhere near complete with 1 minute left. The puzzle is disorganized chaos as well. They have 10 seconds left to complete it, and someone yells, "Just shove them anywhere," which doesn't seem like a good strategy, and they end up spelling shalanji. If only Johnny Bananas were here, because this is a vengeance type situation. So they lost the challenge, and now they have to decide in the arena who they want to vote into the elimination. The house is the same exact house from the Challenge USA, just with different ugly wallpaper this time, which is so lame and cheap. Back at the house, Berna is already busting everyone's chops. Jay does a toast, and somewhere out there Johnny Bananas is watching this and shaking his head. Berna is upset now about the bed assignments. She skips the party and goes to hang out in bed. Berna is rooming with Colleen, Jessica, and Raven, and she's just so upset with her roomies that she cries to herself. herself. Big T starts strategizing and they make her to be the Alice in the Brady Bunch animation, or the Big T Bunch. After proclaiming herself to be a mastermind, Big T strategizes with Melissa, wanting there to be a woman winner this season. The ladies start scheming against Berna, but Michelle expresses loyalty to people she's played with before, including Berna. Jay and Asif are apparently close friends after the one episode they were in together. I said in my preseason rankings that Michelle and Jay are the most well-connected people on this cast, so I fully expect them to run this house. Huey and Michelle go to Berna and try to talk to her, but she's completely falling apart and lashing out at them. Later on, Callum and Michelle are up late drunkenly talking, where she asks him if he's in a relationship and he says he's not, and they're clearly flirting. Michelle is down for a good time. She was just making out with Cassidy at the same house like a week before. The next day, they all work out in slow motion, and everybody already knows about Michelle and Callum. It seems like they were just talking and nothing scandalous happened overnight. Or let me correct myself, nothing scandalous happened yet, because then, on the phone, Callum's girlfriend. No! He tells his girlfriend he loves her.
You know, this is the girlfriend he just said didn't exist.
But this is exactly the kind of drama that we can expect from Callum, I guess. Colleen is going to talk to Berna, and Colleen says, I'm a psychologist, so I can tell that Berna struggles to make connections. She gets through half a sentence, and Berna says, no, I don't need advice, thank you. A bunch of guys strategize to get votes on Big T because she's always up to something and is a liability in challenges. Big T wants to unite the women, but Olivia wants Jess out, and this is becoming a little too chaotic, and I hope that there's a twist that adds some more structure to this mess. In the deliberation, Callum starts speaking for the men, and Nerys blames the women for coming up with the losing strategy in the challenge. The men really make asses of themselves in this deliberation by being very rude. Berna apologizes to the group, and then Jess speaks up saying that she's a small woman and doesn't feel like she can win the show, and that the money means nothing to her and she would give it to charity, which is just a cringe speech if you're not trying to volunteer yourself. They all show up to the elimination ready to fight in their ugly orange leggings. They have to vote out loud one at a time. It's anticlimactic, but they all vote for Jessica, and she even votes for herself. TJ says smart. Mr. Big Shot, Horacio, puts one vote on Big T. TJ then gives Jessica ultimate control to pick any woman she wants to go against in elimination. I didn't agree with a lot of the production decisions on this episode, but I did agree with this method of picking a second person for the elimination. So Jessica picks Big T, which is kind of the obvious choice. The challenge is called Fallout, which is kind of a spin on a classic elimination. They'll be suspended in a cage and have to clear tiles out of the cage, collect a mallet, and smash the bottom out of the cage. Big T whips through her tiles and gets to her mallet first and wins the elimination, which ends up being a big moment for her. TJ says that there wasn't a man or woman who could have beat Big T in this elimination, and I don't know if I believe that. So after all that, we have to say goodbye to Jessica, who I didn't really remember from her season at all, and probably won't remember her for this. She was coming for my girl Olivia, and then perpetuated the recent trend of people being on these shows and not really caring if they win or lose. To me, I was getting big quitter energy by her saying she didn't really care about being there or the money, and pretty much volunteering for the elimination and even voting for herself. And I think that if she really tried, she could have beaten Big T, but TJ says he hopes we see her again, and personally, I'm okay if we don't. Moving on to episode 2, 2 lungs, 1 heart, can't lose. I apologize for the lack of video clips in this episode. I was getting a lot of copyright errors with these clips. They celebrate Big T's win, and she wants to make sure that they can make it a guy's elimination next. Horacio worries that voting for Big T will come back to bite him, and that really was messy gameplay for no reason. Truly, why stick your neck out for Jessica, who basically volunteered to go in? Jay points out that there's a split house of USA contenders and international players, with him kind of in the middle. Chauncey is riding in the middle with his USA allies, but feels like there's something off about Jay that he doesn't trust. They all work out outside, and Callum and Michelle are caught kissing out there in clear daylight. Huey and Olivia talk, and Olivia opens up about living in Alaska and dreaming of being more girly. Huey tells her about growing up in an Irish caravan lifestyle. He says that he has skills with living with people and getting along well with others, but Huey also has such a reputation of not playing well with others and not being able to live with people, so this seems so revisionist, but okay, go off. Kyland and Melissa are canoodling on the sofa, and I don't know how I feel about this. Kyland said that he had a crush on Melissa on Total Madness, and then she invites him back to her room. For their second challenge, it's heights over water, and they're going to be competing for $50,000. The challenge is called ball control. They have to gather balls in the water with their names on them, and then make a human ladder up 2 ropes, climbing up each other to drop the balls into a tube. This challenge just looks so hard. And they only have 23 minutes to do it. I feel like this would take hours. James reminds us that the last time he was on the challenge, he let himself down, so let's see if he can get through this one challenge without breaking his face. Kieran decides to take the lead yet again, and who keeps putting this guy in charge? He's a terrible leader. Well, obviously a lot of them agree with me because they all start chiming in and screaming at each other. There are way too many cooks in this kitchen. Huey says that he has no faith in the group completing this, and he just hopes that he's not in the elimination. In the water, Michelle, who's taking this all very seriously, finds her ball and says, "Hey honey, how are you honey? Moi." James climbs up Olivia and she calls him the Hulk, and they make sure to edit him green as he's stepping on her face. The challenge just ends up being a total mess. There's 8 out of 23 minutes left and they have no balls complete, and every ball that they get is $2,000. One of the rope ladder teams decides they just suck and to just give up on their ladder and try to climb up the other ladder instead. I think the optimal strategy for this was just to have a tower of guys and then have all the girls climb up the ladder of guys on just one side. So in the end, they only got 3 balls in and win $6,000, and we get a rare Huhui sighting when she tells us that maybe Chauncey should be nominated because he couldn't clip himself into the rope. This whole Chauncey not being able to clip himself in alibi seemed to really give them a good excuse to start throwing his name around. Berna, who seems to be having an easier time this episode, says that she's going to try to protect Huey in any way possible. Some of the stronger guys meet to discuss their targets in a bedroom. They decide that Huey and Big T are the biggest liabilities. In another room, Michelle points out that the cons to nominating Chauncey are that he will probably call Huey into elimination and stay in the game. James and Huey jokingly flirt, and at this point, this is more than enough Huey content for a lifetime for me. The challengers are going to the club, and I love when they go to the real club, not the club in the house. At the club, Michelle and Callum are having a great time giving each other googly eyes and flirting. Raven and Chauncey agree that the USA players should stick together. Jay tells Huey that it would be better for Huey to volunteer to go into elimination and choose a competitor than to get chosen by somebody, which was pretty solid advice. At the bar, everyone chants for Kylant and Melissa to kiss, and he won't kiss her, and she's embarrassed. Then she yells at him, saying that he's making her feel like shit about herself. She feels like she's chasing him, and Melissa brings so much amazing drama to this show. Kylant later opens up to her about being diagnosed with autism, which ends up being a sweet moment, and then they have a steamy moment in bed later when he's rubbing her back and whispering game talk in her ear. She says in confessional she could do without the game talk. The next day, Nerisse whips out her I Love to Make Boys Cry t-shirt to Olivia, and then they start talking shit about Raven. They don't like that Raven was sticking up for Chauncey. Nerisse calls Raven annoying and desperate, and I can't believe they all just don't like Chauncey because he couldn't do his clip. James and Kieran bond outside. Kieran wants to stick with the UK people, and James wants to protect Huey. Chauncey calls a meeting with some of the USA players to declare that he's loyal to them. Later, they deliberate outside, and Huey has an impassioned speech talking himself up. Callum is fired up by Huey's speech and says it reminds him of Braveheart, 2 lungs, 1 heart, 24 teeth. Callum says the thing. I've never seen Braveheart. I don't know what these people are talking about. They were desperate for an episode title. Chauncey asks the group if he'd ever done anything wrong. Horacio is like, what about me? You did something wrong to me. And then Chauncey asks Michelle if he ever did her wrong, and she says yes. Jay chimes in that he also did him wrong. So it's kind of making itself known that there's more to them not liking Chauncey than the fact that he couldn't do his clip. There are a lot of people on this cast that feel betrayed by Chauncey. So they leave off this deliberation with no clear decision. Raven and Kieran have an alliance apparently, or a showmance, I can't tell. At some point, Kylant also brings up that the person voted in may only be able to pick someone who voted for them, and says that Raven has been sketchy and double dipping with the UK people. So it ends up being a complicated mess. Votes go all over the place. Chauncey ends up getting 18 votes and is going into elimination. Chauncey ends up choosing James, and they're playing Might Light, where they're on either side of a wall, basically trying to get 3 in a row of lit up pieces. And at the end of the 3 rounds, whoever has the most sequences of 3 is the winner. I would have liked to see these two in a more physical elimination, though I have more faith in Chauncey in this because I have 0 faith in James as a competitor. The elimination ends up being pretty boring for the most part. In the first round, James has 9 and Chauncey has 6. Personally, I only needed 1 round of this. After round 2, James starts hyperventilating, and Melissa says James is absolutely not fit enough to run in a final and that he would gas out at the starting line. The score is 15-11 in James's favor going into the final round. The third round gets scored with fun music, which I guess makes it a little more fun. James is burnt out at this point. Big T says someone should get a paramedic for him. Then James passes out again at the end of the round, and in the end, it's James with 18 and Chauncey with 17, so James does win the elimination and brags a lot for someone who barely survived physically, but overall, he made himself look really weak in the process. And we have to say goodbye to Chauncey, who is a nice guy, and he's fit, but he's a pretty terrible player, and he gets to go home to Amber and their baby. I don't have much to say about Chauncey on this run, but I would like to see him return with Amber in the future because I feel like the 2 of them together are better than the 2 of them apart. I would love to see Chauncey back and could definitely see him winning the challenge one day. At the end of the episode, TJ teases that when the countdown goes off, the game is going to get crazy, which got me really hyped that the champions were coming. And we move on to episode 3 titled It's a Matter of Semantics. James comes back to the house, happy to win an elimination against Chauncey, who is a really tough competitor. He's interested in Mariah. Mariah feels bad because she's attracted to James, but she's also been hanging out with Bananas outside the show for a while now. The Americans meet and discuss that they had a plan for Chauncey to surprise an international player, but Raven betrayed them and spoiled the plan to the other side. Michelle tells us, Raven, you're in trouble, girl. Get on your big girl pants because you're going to be fighting this week. Big T chefs it up in the kitchen and cooks a big, delicious looking steak for the house, complete with her apron, her Hell's Kitchen jacket. Everyone loves the food. Huhui is struggling with her English, and I can't imagine how hard it must be for her to be there, but she has Horacio who speaks Spanish with her, and maybe she has a crush on him, I can't tell. Raven is starting to feel iced out by the group. They all party in the hot tub. This is the biggest hot tub I've ever seen. Asif wears a bikini. Kieran and Raven are getting smoochy. Horacio says he's staying out of it, but Nerys is eyeing him, and we all know how that's going to turn out. Berna gyrates and pats her crotch performatively. She notices Big T and Melissa giving her dirty looks, and it hurts her feelings. They're barely making any faces, but she feels bullied. Berna confronts Melissa, saying, when you look at me and smile, I feel bullied. This must be triggering for Melissa, given that what she's seen on the seasons that she's been on. I don't think Melissa is a bully. She says, do not ever say I'm bullying you. Melissa takes this very personally. Huey empathizes with Berna. He feels like she walks into a room and she feels like people are talking about her. Emmanuel comforts Berna and he says that she's his number one in the game. Berna says she's been working on herself and wants to just have fun. I feel for her. Sometimes when you, aka me, get into a self-destructive spiral, it's hard to just pull yourself out of it easily. The players get ready for their daily challenge in their Under Armour prison uniforms. For their third challenge, TJ reminds us that they're in the control section of the game, and honestly, these game section labels they're either so poorly thought out or poorly named. I have no idea what they mean. The challenge is called Control Tower. 16 of them will be in buggies with numbers on them as passengers and drivers. The others will be in the control tower, shouting at them which numbers go in what place of an equation. Someone needs to bubble up to challenge HQ that anything to do with equations is not interesting television. Asif has a great idea that anyone whose English is their second language should partner with someone who has perfect English. They put Michelle on the loudspeaker running the show, and Ed and Kylant are on the equation. I think they do a great job distributing the responsibilities here. Michelle could lead a valet service. She does a great job bossing them around. Ed and Kylant are crushing the equations, and Huhui and Horacio are having fun and kind of flirting in their buggy. On the third equation, they switch Kylant for Jay, and they quickly figure out that equation. Raven in the control tower, who's doing nothing, gets frustrated with Huhui for not understanding English, which just sucks of her. No wonder why they're all agitated with Raven. I'm getting agitated with her too. They end up crushing the mission and winning $50,000, even though they had plenty of time to complete this, and it was kind of a guaranteed win unless they completely messed it up. Back at the house, Melissa talks to Berna, saying she would appreciate her pulling her aside and talking to her in the future, and Berna takes back her bully accusations. They go to the club, and everyone is looking amazing. Michelle is loving getting to know Callum. He feels like it's officially a thing, and he's falling for Michelle, and they kiss, but he still has a girlfriend. Huey sees Raven from across the club and conveniently remembers that he has it out for her, and remembers that she voted for him in the last elimination. Michelle and Jay convene. Jay tells Michelle that Callum is the ringleader of the International Alliance. She reinforces to Jay that he's her ride or die. For the deliberation, it seems like the group is pretty settled on alternating genders for eliminations, giving me some faith in humanity and equity, so they're only considering females this time, which seems fair. Berna does a good job of selling herself to the group, and I also feel like the ladies are more likely to forgive her because nobody wants to face Berna in elimination. Raven feels like she's made every rookie mistake in the game. So it seems like Raven is going to get voted in, and in the bedroom, the girls decide to burn votes by putting votes randomly on the guys and letting the guys vote for Raven. I guess the logic behind this is they don't want to vote for her so that she doesn't call them into elimination. Corey is especially offended that the girls are burning votes. At the arena, Jay starts it off by voting for Raven, and the guys all vote for Raven, with the girls burning votes because they don't want to be Raven's pick again. Raven even votes for herself. TJ acts indignant that all the girls are burning their votes, but sir, you are one of the producers of this show, and it's a hole in your game. That's your problem, not theirs. So Raven is nominated. She calls down Huhui to go against her, and they're playing dirty deeds. They have to race to a dirt mound and search in the dirt for 3 objects. They have to get 2 out of 3 objects to win a round, and 2 out of 3 rounds wins the elimination. Huhui takes the first round, with everyone pointing out that Raven isn't really keeping an eye on Huhui. Raven outmuscles Huhui in round 2, and again in round 3, where Raven at that point is just absolutely bodying her, and Raven ends up winning the elimination while keeping both of her shoes on. So we have to say goodbye to Huhui, and goodbye Huhui, you seem so sweet, and TJ calls her the sweetest contender we've ever had, and he hopes that we see her in the future. I hope that we see her again too, though it seems like she kind of is there and is pretty quiet most of the time, and through that hasn't really and probably will never do anything too memorable on the show. I don't know. Am I a Huhui stan? Moving on to episode 4, titled I'm Coming Out. This episode aired back to back with episode 3, and they were both 90 minutes, which was a lot of challenge for me. You could tell at this point the ratings were so bad that they were just throwing episodes at us like garbage, with hopes that the champs coming would save the ratings, which it eventually would. After Huhui's elimination, they go back to the house, and Raven is excited to have won her first elimination. She says she feels now like the girls see that she's trustworthy. I don't know how she's decided this, other than the fact that she picked an international player, not an American, but for real, she only picked Huhui because she could beat her. Zara randomly decides that she has it out for Corey, and she calls Corey a snake because he's been saying her name. Horacio says that Zara is taking it too personally. Corey and Asif agree to stick with the Americans, and as they get ready, Berna calls Raven desperate. Their daily challenge is called Under Control. It's a swimming challenge. They have to swim out to buoys, swim down, and collect 25 puzzle pieces. They can complete 5 puzzles, which are each worth $5,000, and if they get all 5 in fast enough time, TJ will double the total to $50,000. Nerys isn't the best swimmer, but she has her Scuba Nelly necklace, and we get a nod to Nelson as he pop-up videos into the picture. During the pre-challenge strategizing, they're all talking over each other as usual. Asif says Huey is in his ear like a mosquito buzzing in the middle of the night. The challenge is so chaotic. Michelle lies to people, telling them the pieces aren't as deep as they really are to get them to have bravery, which is a big mommy move. Nerys and Melissa are struggling with the challenge, and Huey is causing a ruckus, which Callum calls annoying. Ed decides he's Baywatch to rescue Nerys and helps her with her piece. They get it done with allegedly 3 seconds to spare, and they all celebrate on the podium as Shrek's fart pours out of the podium, and they win $50,000, bringing their total to $406,000. TJ now takes matters into his own hands, telling them it's time for a male elimination. No more funny business with the votes. He is over the burn votes. Later on, Asif decides he wants to get into drag to celebrate because they are celebrating Big T coming out, so they're having a pride party, and Corey and Huey connect over both being gay. So they have their party, they play Padam Padam as a campy getting ready montage shows James kissing Kieran on the cheek. Asif is in Y2K drag, Emmanuel is in a corset and a wig, and they bring the Club to the house for a backyard party. They cheers to Big T, and it's a nice moment. They jump in the pool. Inside, they play Most Likely To. They vote Callum most likely to not sleep in their own bed. Melissa nominates herself horniest person in the room, and then Huey is somewhere between way out of pocket and Wylan when he says most likely to cheat on their partner at home. Someone in the back says, what a terrible thing to say. So everyone is mortified, but the producers seize the opportunity to interrogate Callum in confessional, asking him what's been going on with his girlfriend back home. He shamefully owns up to it in the confessional. Huey says, I meant it humorously, which is an argument that never holds up in court, in the principal's office, at work, or anywhere really. Big T reflects that she recently had a breakup with a partner that really affected her, and everyone gives her so much love and support. In the bedroom, Zara still has it out for Corey, throwing his name out there. Raven decides that she's not going to say anything about that because she wants to lay low. Outside, they make s'mores. Michelle whispers something to Callum, and they step aside, and he says he feels vulnerable and that he thinks about Michelle all day. Callum is honest in the confessional, saying that he's torn between his girlfriend and Michelle. He's struggling with it, but that doesn't excuse what he's doing. Mariah is flirting with James, but it seems like Mariah and Bananas aren't exclusive back at home. But Olivia thinks that even if you're not official and you're going on dates or dating someone, she feels like Mariah shouldn't be doing this to Bananas. She says that Mariah is playing with Faya, and they show in the dark footage of, I guess, Mariah and James cuddling in bed. The next day, Mariah feels guilty for cuddling with James, and she feels like she did wrong by Bananas. Nerys tells her that this means that if she's feeling this way, it's not meant to be with Johnny. This wasn't very good, friendly advice from Nerys. Why would you tell her to leave the guy that she's been seeing for a year for a guy that she just met who's literally from a different country? Michelle tells Corey that Zara has been coming for him and calling him a snake. Michelle doesn't want Corey to bury himself in deliberation, which brings us to the deliberation. James instantly brings up that the names that have been brought up were Corey and Huey, but actually nobody had been bringing up Huey too much as far as we saw, so Huey is as shocked as Well, I'm not shocked, but Huey is shocked and instantly pops off and pipes up. After deliberations, a big group meets up to really deliberate. They throw out James's name. Callum overhears this and says it's important for him to keep James around as his friend, but he wants to target Corey. James finds out that his name is being tossed up and he's pissed and starts saying some kind of C word that's blurred out. He says if he's voted in, he's going to make everyone's lives a living nightmare. In the voting, Mariah starts off voting for Huey. James tries to burn his vote and votes for Callum, his friend. Callum says, "You're a rat, mate." Most others vote for Huey. Zara still votes for Corey, which seems really petty. Olivia points out that the guys were upset that they burn voted and now they're all doing it. Huey ends up voted in and picks Kylan to go against him in the elimination. The elimination is called How I Roll, and they'll have to roll balls down a ramp into baskets. The first person to score 9 baskets win. It was really dumb of Huey to pick Kylan because this is right in Kylan's wheelhouse, and it's extremely big brothery. He should have picked James, who showed last week he has no endurance. So they start rolling. Kylan gets the first one in, which instantly sets him off to an advantage. The elimination looks like fun. I'd love to try it. Everyone is frustrated with Huey for sucking at this, even TJ, who can't help to say, "That's too fast." Huey trips and eats shit, falling, and he falls into his basket. Kieran says, "The balls are meant to go in the basket, mate, not you." Kylan shouts out Jordan as his inspiration and shouts out the communities that he represents: Black, Mexican, autistic, and they're really painting Kylan out to be a winner here, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the sole champ for the season. So Kylan, unsurprisingly, wins the elimination, and we have to say goodbye to Huey. TJ says that he hopes that we see Huey again, and Huey says he wanted to prove his ability and that he's not a weak link, and he thinks that he's proven that. And I want some of what these people are sipping because I definitely would not like to see Huey again, and I definitely think he did prove that he was a weak link on the season. And I guess that kind of gets me into saying goodbye to Huey here. I make no secret that I wasn't the biggest fan of Huey on his original show, Big Brother UK. I was really shocked originally when he made it onto the casting pool for his original season of the challenge because it had been like 10 years since he was even on TV. I'm just personally not a fan of what he brings to the shows, but he came to this season and was overall the most pleasant that he's been on any of the shows that he's been on. Though through a lot of it, he was really trying to rewrite a lot of his history by saying that he is known for playing well and living well with others, when on literally every show that I've seen him on, he's screaming his face off at people. So he ends up coming here, not really contributing much to helping the team win money. I guess he made some friends, but overall I find him to just be a little bit of a headache. And I didn't mean to be harsh earlier, but I really just would not like to see him again on another season of the challenge or just again on TV. Moving on to episode 5, titled Countdown to Chaos. They get back into the house and celebrate Kylan beating Huey in elimination. They notice that the countdown clock on the wall says 13 hours. Kylan says the clock is stealing all of his shine. Asif tells us that he trusts Corey and he'll do anything in his power to keep Corey in the game. Asif, Nerys, and Jay conspire that the American Alliance should go after the internationals and single out Kieran as a target. TJ tells them that level 1 is now complete. Now they're in chaos section of the game where they never know if the game will be played in pairs or teams. Basically, the twist is we can do whatever we want. Then a truck comes in and they're playing Upside Down World in a pairs challenge. I love trucks challenges. I feel like they're always good entertainment. They'll be attached to spinning windmills on the side of the truck and gathering rings on top. Then on the bottom, they have to throw the rings at targets to score points. TJ says the teams will be randomly selected, and it doesn't seem very random since TJ is pulling names out of a box that he can see, and the names are obviously put in a box in a specific order. Where is the hopper? Callum seems to find the right strategy of just throwing a ton of rings at the targets all at once. Then the others start following suit. Corey gets a ton. They get credit even if the ring gets close to the pole, which I don't agree with. I am a ring toss purist. The winners end up being Corey and Raven. Corey and Raven instantly have to nominate one man to face elimination, and they pick Asif, who says, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm surprised too, since Asif was just saying he trusts Corey. Michelle is not happy either because she's scared she's also at risk as Asif's partner. Asif calls Corey a coward with finger pointed and all. Then he takes a quick second to think before he speaks and calls Corey a bitch. Afterwards, they go to the club. Horacio is encouraging to Asif, and Colleen says it's a waste of time for Kylan and Melissa to be pursuing a romantic relationship in the house. Horacio and Nerys are also flirting. The other contestants look down on this, but given that they're still dating, they're obviously wrong. Michelle is mad at Corey for picking her partner in the game. They have a little tiff at the club about it. The UK Alliance throw Horacio's name out there, so Horacio is on some people's radar. In deliberation, Asif instantly calls Corey sketchy and untrustworthy. Then they debate on whether or not women will also be at risk, and the group votes to nominate Kieran for elimination. When they get to the elimination, TJ says to be the best, you have to beat the best. We already knew this would happen, but in comes Jordan, and TJ says Jordan's mission is to send one of the guys home, and if he does that, he'll get $10,000 from the prize pot. So basically, Jordan is the lip sync assassin. I like that there's some monetary reward for the mercenaries at least. Jordan has to pull one of 3 polls from a draw. One of them has Asif's name, one has Kieran's name, and one TJ leaves as a mystery, but I assume it either says that Jordan can face off with both of them or it would be Jordan's choice. He pulls Kieran's name, so I guess we'll find out what that means later. The elimination is called King of the Hills. They basically are racing to slap light buttons as soon as they turn on, kind of like whack-a-mole, and whoever gets the most first wins the elimination. It ends up being pretty neck and neck. Kieran gets the point for the first round. At some point, Jordan just stands there letting Kieran rack up points in the second round. Then Jordan decides to really start playing and still ends up winning the second round, completely bodying Kieran at this. In the third round, Jordan beats Kieran again handily, so the team loses $10,000 to Jordan and Kieran is eliminated. By the way, I know that this is all kind of coming across really rushed, but this episode seemed very straightforward to me. But here we have to say goodbye to Kieran, someone who I did watch the Australian version of the challenge, but I don't remember him too much outside of the fact that he had some messy personal drama. But I know that most people who watch this show on MTV do not watch the international versions. Like, I also feel like people are going to be shocked when TJ says that Jordan is the first international champion. Nobody seemed to really care about the international challenge universe that they were building, and I'm kind of glad that I think we're past that. I don't have much to say about Kieran here. He was a real detriment to them in the team challenges, with causing a lot of disruption when they were planning and strategizing for their challenges. And overall, he was one of the leaders in the pretty doomed UK alliance here. I think it would have been a long, tough journey for Kieran to win this season, so it's okay that he's leaving here. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't mind seeing him coming back to the challenge because I know he's capable of having that messy drama that I love. Yum, 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 give me more. And he pretty much goes out like a lamb here, trying really hard against Jordan, one of the better competitors, if not the best competitor on the show. At least as far as modern challenge goes, Jordan is still in his prime. And Jordan didn't make a complete fool against Kieran. He was pretty humane about it. We go to episode 6 titled The Big Mistake. When everyone gets back to the house, there's really not much to celebrate. They just lost $10,000. Zara says that the Jordanimal came out and they decide that they have to nominate the strongest players so that the mercenaries don't take their money. But they seem to completely forget about the mercenaries after this. Nerys and Horacio bond. He likes that she has connection to her family and she likes that he is innocent and sweet. Michelle, Jay, Asif, and Nerys meet to solidify their alliance. They call it the Fantastic Four, with Asif being their spy for the UK side of the house. It's not very often that we get these little alliances like this on the show, and it could be a good thing or a big mistake. Because the episode was titled The Big Mistake, I'm wondering what the big mistake is going to be the whole episode. Michelle apologizes to Corey for being upset with him in the previous challenge, and they hug it out. They show up to the challenge and it's a mud pit that looks like a nacho dip bowl full of poop. Mariah is excited because she has a lot of frustration and anger and would love to choke someone out in the mud today. Okay, Mariah, choke him out, girl. The challenge is called Bingo Bango, and it's basically bingo. They have bingo boards. TJ will throw bingo balls into the mud, and they split into 4 teams. They have to get the balls they feel like they need to make bingo. TJ leaves it ambiguous whether it'll be a guys or girls day, probably to get everyone to try at this. Olivia ends up on a team with Melissa and Big T, who are the house targets, so she says she's going to try to sabotage the team so that Melissa and Big T are not safe. So they fight over the balls. Big T notices that her team has no balls after a few rounds. Nerys says that she wishes she had a remote to put Horacio in slow motion so she could watch him in the mud. In the mud, Melissa kicks Nerys in the back. Uh-oh, that was a big mistake. Nerys is extremely upset, and Nerys says, "Bitch, don't kick me. Bitch, I'll play dirty too." Melissa says, "Fuck you, Nerys." This is where the vendettas are being made, and Nerys wants to play dirty. Emmanuel, Kyland, Horacio, Colleen, Zara, and Berna, who really were a stacked team, end up winning the challenge. TJ does tell them to pick one woman to go into elimination. When they deliberate, Kyland doesn't want to nominate Melissa, so they end up not being able to decide until TJ puts the pressure on them, and Berna, Colleen, and Emmanuel vote for Melissa. Zara defaults to Horacio for her vote. Nerys whispers to Horacio in Spanish, encouraging him to vote for Melissa, and Horacio does end up voting for Melissa, and Zara does too, so Melissa's going into the arena. Big T says she's fuming, and flames pop up behind her. After the challenge, Nerys is still mad that Melissa choked her and kicked her. Melissa finds a dead bird and says it's symbolic to her game. Big T tells Melissa that there was a plan to sabotage their team. It's time for them to go to the club. The club looks fun this time. Horacio steams things up by doing a strip tease for Nerys, undoing his shirt, straddling her, kissing her. Michelle says that she and Callum wouldn't do that, but would sneak to the bathroom for kisses. Sneak to the bathroom for kisses seems like adult code. Also, I forgot that Callum was still there. He's been such a background character lately for someone who's having an affair on TV. Callum then tells Asif that the only people who have gone are UK or international, and Asif says Callum doesn't understand he's Geppetto and Callum is Pinocchio. Melissa wants to meet with Nerys because she thinks Nerys is smart, almost like she wants to sort it out, but when they sit down, they instantly start fighting. Nerys walks away and Melissa laughs at her as she does so nothing was resolved. Melissa tells Big T that she can get the numbers to get Raven into elimination, but not Nerys. Big T says not Raven, and Melissa says, okay, do you want to go in then? And it seems like Big T would rather go in instead of Raven. Later, Nerys and Horacio talk and flirt. She says she's surprised. She thought that she'd never in a million years be into Horacio, which sounds like bullshit to me. Asif runs what Callum said back to Jay, and they call Callum stupid. James says he doesn't want to see Big T and Melissa go head to head, and I'm wondering, did these people really not think there's going to be another mercenary? In deliberation, Melissa starts off saying Big T is her best friend. Big T says she'll be loyal to people who don't say her name. Everyone ends up saying Big T's name, and Melissa and Big T have a great friendship moment when they get back, giving each other a big hug. They get into elimination, and Kaz ends up being the mercenary. I thought Melissa and Big T were doomed here, but of all the mercenaries, Kaz is probably the most beatable, or at least the one who I don't feel like is unbeatable. In the draw, Kaz pulls Big T's name, and they're playing Loaded Barrel. They'll be rolling in a barrel to collect bags full of puzzle pieces. Then they have to solve the puzzle. Big T makes sure to put on lip gloss and says you can't go into elimination with dry lips. Wet-lipped Big T is crushing it at this elimination, and Kaz is really not doing well. Kylan says that he's disappointed in Kaz and that she's not as strong as he thought that she was. Nerys whispers to herself that Kaz needs to get it together. Big T's strategy is to gather the pieces and bring them at the same time to avoid trips. She gets her pieces there first, and the puzzle is a tanagram, but it does have a puzzle printed on it, so it's not that hard. Big T ends up winning, which is pretty awesome. She and Melissa celebrate, and Big T saved the $10,000 for the prize pot, and TJ's super proud of her. TJ tells them that he'll see them all sooner than they think. So normally here's where I'll talk about the eliminated player, but there was no eliminated player this episode. We haven't had too much of this since I started my channel, but I hate non-elimination episodes on reality TV. On an elimination style show, if you have no elimination, you have no style. This as a whole was a pretty decent episode given that there was some drama, and I really liked the challenge this episode, but I'm just left off feeling so agitated that this was just a royal waste of time. Oh yeah, I never resolved what was the big mistake. I think the big mistake was me watching this instead of spending time with my family on Thanksgiving, so I'm about to go eat some turkey. Gobbling onto episode 7 titled So Flip Floppy. Big T and Melissa skip back to the house to celebrate Big T winning elimination and protecting the money. Big T knows the sneaky contenders are still going to be coming for she and Melissa. Sexy jazzy music plays as Callum tells us that at night things get steamy in the house. He calls Horacio a horny little man and that Horacio and Nerys have been hanging out but not kissing. James has been putting on the Essex boy charm on Mariah, and Callum and Michelle are shown making out in the hot tub as Callum tells us he feels like he has his fingers in all the pies right now. Moving on. Horacio and Berna talk. She gives him advice about his dating life with Nerys. She tells him that he's struggling with his social game. Corey tells Melissa about feeling on the bottom of the American alliance. Melissa hints to Corey that he's basically going to be effed if he doesn't switch to her side. Callum talks about his motivation, and he shouts out his family but not his girlfriend back home with the whitest teeth of any family I've ever seen. Emmanuel says he's there to help his mom retire from home cleaning. They get to the daily challenge. There are pyramids suspended over water called Working the Angles. They'll be in 6 teams, and they have to replicate a puzzle on one pyramid to the other, swinging back and forth. The winning team will be safe from elimination. Olivia, Jay, and Colleen go first. Olivia has a close call and almost falls. I feel very nervous about Olivia hurting her face again, so I'm glad that she doesn't fall. Jay climbs across the pyramid like a squirrel. Spectator Emmanuel accuses Colleen of being colorblind because she's giving terrible color directions to her team, and they do terribly. James, Emmanuel, and Melissa go next, and James is reminded that he broke his face doing something like this on his season, but he makes it across and they're quick and efficient and communicative. Team 3 is Zara, Callum, and Michelle. Callum doesn't want to look like a dweeb in front of Michelle, and they do pretty well. The next team has 4 people with Nerys, Ed, Mariah, and Asif, and it doesn't really seem like they did anything to make this any harder for the team of 4 people, so it just doesn't seem very fair or well thought out. One of these 4 should have had to sit out, but Mariah is useless at this anyways. She doesn't want to mess up her $13,000 nose job, and I don't blame her, so she relaxes on the side of the pyramid holding the rope. Kyland, Horacio, and Big T are next, with Big T as the caller, and they crush it, especially because the boys are quick. Berna, Raven, and Corey is afraid to swing, so he's the caller. Olivia says Berna's ass cheeks are glistening in the sun, and they make Berna's butt cheeks a real talking point here. Even giving Berna a confessional about her butt cheeks, Berna starts royally messing up the puzzle, and Michelle screams at her to fix it from the sidelines. Overall, I found this challenge pretty boring and easy. Nobody fell off the rope, which would have made for better TV and more chances for people to struggle with the puzzle. Also, the puzzle was really easy. All the pieces were the same layout, so they only needed to call out what color was on top. Kyland, Horacio, and Big T win and are safe. They have to pick one man to send into the arena. Kyland wants to nominate Emmanuel, and Horacio is not down for that. TJ puts Horacio on the spot, and he really struggles to give TJ an answer, but he does end up saying Emmanuel. Jay says that Horacio and Kyland pissed off Dracula, aka Emmanuel, and that they shit the bed. On to my favorite part of every episode, they are going to the club. Callum instantly says that he doesn't trust Nerys. Berna quickly co-signs this. Callum says that Nerys is playing Horacio like a puppet. The house finds out that Corey has been exploring the other side, and the American Alliance are not happy with Corey. Outside, Michelle sets up a date for she and Callum the next day, including hand-picked flowers from the backyard. They kiss and have a date, and this is hard to watch because Michelle is smitten, but we all already know what we know about Callum having a girlfriend. At nominations, Emmanuel tells the group that he's gathered them for a nice round of butthole kissing. I can't believe this is televised. The crowd goes wild for this. Asif says, let's cut the BS. He says, Corey, your name is going around the house. Raven calls Corey flip-floppy, so I guess that explains the episode title. Corey announces he's been playing the Brits. It's very obvious that Corey is trying to cover his tracks. I don't think he's making a big impact, but it acts as a pretty decent TV moment. Nerys says, if you were being a spy, don't you think you would have told at least one person about it? She calls him shady, a fake, and a liar. Everyone ends up voting for Corey. Melissa calls him an absolute bitch who treated her like she had no humanity. They go straight to the elimination, and the mercenary is Devin, who, like Kaz last week, I think is one of the more beatable mercenaries. But Emmanuel points out that Devin has beat him in elimination before. Michelle calls Devin chaos personified, which acts as a good soundbite, but I don't think Devin is really that chaotic. TJ reminds us that 2 of the polls in the draw have names on them, and the other one, well, we have to find out. And then we find out it's just a big mace with no name on it. Devin gets to pick any man he wants to go against, except for Kyland and Horacio, who are safe, which I wasn't expecting and I guess is an okay twist. Devin says his objective is to ruin someone's day. Devin asks the crowd who he should pick, and he says he's not going to pick anybody he already knows. He calls down Callum. Michelle is mad at Devin, but how is he supposed to know that they're hooking up? They'll be playing Totally Mental, where they have to gather crates, count the items in them, and then sort them from low to high. This elimination was pretty whack to me. I get that they want to prop Devin up as a champion and give him a counting competition so he cannot get his ass kicked, but I feel like they sat around and thought, what's an elimination that Devin wouldn't do bad in? And the only thing that they can come up with was counting. It's just so insulting to Devin, I think. The challenge starts. Devin spills out a box, which puts Callum off to an early lead. Callum kicks Devin's spillage pieces around to make Devin's life harder. Everyone's helping Callum count. Devin asks for a check first and is wrong. Callum is wrong too, but Devin does end up winning and eliminating Callum and taking $10,000 from the pot. And we have to say goodbye to Callum. I'm of 2 minds about Callum because obviously his behavior is terrible, but he's also a really somehow likable guy and a great reality TV character. Callum is dating someone now, and it's not Michelle. He keeps it pushing, as we've seen. I'd actually like to see Callum on a few more seasons because he brings the house drama that's been oh so lacking in the past few years. And sometimes there's so much heavy drama and like really terrible things that people do on these shows that are such a headache that relationship drama is a welcome relief. Moving forward to episode 8, titled Struggling to Hold It Together. But I don't know what this episode title is about. Who's struggling to hold it together other than the production team? Dracula Emmanuel is pissed that he was nominated, he's coming for Kyland, Horacio, and Big T. He says, if you take a shot at me, you take a shot at my family. After Callum's elimination, Michelle's friends encourage and console her. She tells us she fell in love on reality TV. The Americans discuss their next target. Jay wants Zara, Olivia and Asif want Melissa. Colleen, who's been invisible this whole season, talks about how she works in mental health and easily connects with guys but struggles with the girls. Big T FaceTimes with Kyle and Child, which is just an excuse for Kyle to be on the show. Maybe 2 or 3 more people tuned in this episode. Corey is now trying to fly under the radar and play a clean game after throwing Melissa and Big T under the bus. He apologizes to Melissa, but she calls him the C word in confessional, so that's something. Zara and Raven are gonna bond over being toward the bottom of the pecking order for the girls. They head to the daily challenge and TJ tells them that they've been doing a piss poor job at holding on to their money. Today they're playing Tower of Power in 2 teams. They have to build a barricade of rubble around a tower. Then after a certain amount of time, they have to break in and climb to the top of the other team's tower. The first team to the top wins. We got some perspectives coming into the challenge. Jay says that the challenge reminds him of the elimination he beat CT in, where he smartly used chains to ward off CT. Kyland wants to redeem himself for losing not so fast on the Challenge USA. The challenge starts and it gets more physical than I was thinking it would, with everyone fighting over these chains and people getting dragged through the dirt trying to get them. Literally everyone is fighting over the chains. Kyland ends up deciding to give up the chains, giving chain expert Jay the chains for his team. Kyland ends up causing confusion on his team. Mariah roasts Kyland, saying a Girl Scout could make better knots than him. So Jay's team is using chains, Kyland's team is using ropes. Asif is focused on lifting. He flexes at the camera and tells us he eats 5 bananas a day and bounces his eyebrows, giving us big Gaston energy for no reason. So the teams switch places. Kyland is trying to undo Jay's chains and gets whacked in the face by a chain and starts bleeding. Jay's team gets ahead because they use the chains. The orange team wins and they're safe, so Jay, James, Emmanuel, Corey, Zara, Berna, Nerys, Mariah, and Raven will be safe this week. Big T is not safe. She says, "Ay caramba." Kylan gets treated for his injury with a cabinet-grade band-aid. I'm just going to throw up a picture of the blue team, so whoever you're seeing is who's up for elimination. The orange team has to pick one woman to be up for elimination. The orange team decides to nominate Melissa. Melissa says to us that Berna can go fuck herself, and she says that Corey is a fake-ass bitch to her, and he can go fuck himself as well. One more woman from the losing team will be nominated, but they don't have a vote in who's nominated. Only the winning team will decide. Back at the house, Melissa and Big T corner Mariah looking for information about the voting. Mariah stands her ground and doesn't give them anything, but big props to Mariah for that. Mariah does realize that Big T and Melissa want to work with her and decides to try to switch the house vote to Colleen. They go to the local club to disrespect the nice furniture by dancing on it. At the club, Emmanuel wants to make a truce with Kyland, but it's fake because he says he's still coming for Kyland with his army. Melissa is on a mission to find out why she was nominated, and she confronts Berna about being told that Berna was the leader of nominating Melissa. Why does this even matter? But apparently Melissa's lying to everyone, telling them that they were the leaders in nominating her until someone owns up to it, and Raven does own up to it. Melissa starts popping off at Raven. This gets heated, and Melissa throws a full to the brim Diet Coke in Raven's face, to which Raven throws red wine at Melissa. You really should not throw a drink at someone who's drinking Merlot. Asif gets upset in confessional because some of the wine got on his shirt, and he got that shirt at Ross Dress for Less. Melissa has a confessional calling Raven a bitch for good measure, but truly, what did Raven do to you, Melissa? The next day, Big T sneaks up on Ed and startles him. This is unserious. Big T is offering Ed euros to save her. In the nominations, they obviously vote for Big T. Even Big T votes for herself. At elimination, the mercenary ends up being Casey, who, off the bat, I don't think anyone can beat, even the men. Melissa gives Casey a big old hug. In the draw, Casey pulls Big T, who Casey says was the one person she didn't want to go against, and they're playing pole wrestle. They start, and I'm actually concerned for Big T, but Big T tries. Casey wins the first round. Horacio says to Melissa, "Tell Big T she can't let go." This is probably the most basic advice you can give to someone in pole wrestle, but okay. Casey does a good job being humane and not embarrassing Big T and is in control the whole time. Casey could have won this second round in seconds, but Big T wins round 2, and I truly believe that Casey let her have it. I'll add clips, but you cannot tell me that Casey is trying. She's just laying there and letting Big T drag her around a bit. In round 3, Casey actually tries. I don't think she even gives it her all, and she wins and takes $10,000 from the pot, so we have to say goodbye to Big T here, who gives Melissa a big hug. On her way out, TJ says that he knows that she'll be a champion one day. I love Big T as a reality TV player. I like the energy that she brings. She's a true underdog and is really rootable. I think she definitely had more great moments on some of her earlier seasons when she was more of a rookie, mostly because I think it's funny seeing more veteran players interact with Big T. I don't think that many people on this season really got a big kick out of her. I think she's an okay social player, mostly because she's just a likable person. I don't agree with what TJ said. I'm not very confident that Big T will ever be a champion. Just like how? Definitely not on an individual season. I think the only way Big T really can win is if they ever did an Inferno or a Gauntlet type season, and they're not going to do that, but that would be really fun. But like I said, I do like Big T, and I would like to see her try a different show, maybe like The Traders, where it's not as physical. I do feel like she has what it takes to maybe win a social strategy game. We get to episode 9 titled A Banana Split. After Big T's elimination, the girls are comforting Melissa, who's upset. Michelle reminds her that Big T didn't die. Horacio and Kylan strategize together. Horacio tells us he doesn't want to pick sides and he wants to ride in the middle with Kylan. Mariah talks to Olivia about her relationship with James and how she feels like Bananas isn't her match back home. Mariah is waiting until after the show to break things off with Johnny, and Olivia is questioning Mariah's loyalty. Asif and Melissa have a little friendship. They bond over being parents, but little does she know Asif is working with the Americans Alliance and he calls himself the new Devin. Emmanuel and Colleen seem to be flirting and there's a mutual attraction there. He wants to keep her in the game as long as he can. Melissa says Emmanuel has been flirting with all the girls in the house and has tried to kiss Melissa twice, and apparently he has a girlfriend back home too. A big theme of this season is people, I guess, cheating on their loved ones back home, but it comes across that it's not really cheating. It seems like they're all in like situationships and open relationships. At the daily, TJ tells them that the challenger he has next for them is a goat, and they're playing this daily in teams of 2, with one team having 3 because they have an odd number of players. Again, this clearly is not very well thought out. The challenge will be played in 3 events with teams getting eliminated along the way. Event number 1 is speed sticks, where they each have a rack of 5 sticks, and they have to race out and grab a stick and bring it back. Along the way, they can steal sticks from other teams to make it harder for them to complete it. They just did a challenge like this on Big Brother Reindeer Games, which I'm currently obsessed with. They're going to play this challenge out until there's one team left who will be eliminated. TJ also says that the winning team will also pick 2 teams to be eliminated. I'm going to throw an image of the team breakdown up on this video so you can see the teams. The challenge starts and Emmanuel is the first person to sabotage, targeting Kylan because, as we covered, Dracula Emmanuel is coming for that ass. Emmanuel also sabotages Nerys and Horacio, and she's pissed that she has to run again. Asif, Zara, and Raven win the first round. I wonder if this has anything to do with the fact that they had 3 players, giving them more time to rest each. Surely not on a well planned out in advance show like this one. Michelle and Kylan are out in the first round, and Michelle shouts at them that they're all going to die a slow and painful death and calls them assholes, but she doesn't really care because she wants to target Kylan too. The winning team deliberates. Raven wants to eliminate Melissa and James because Melissa threw a drink at Raven, and Colleen and Ed are also eliminated. The second event, Power Sticks, they need to pull a sled across a course, picking up heavy sticks. The first team to finish wins. The team of 3 pulls ahead, and this is seriously not fair. Why didn't they have one woman sit out? The challenge looks really hard because they're so heavy some teams can't even pull them. Michelle heckles Jay and Mariah from the sidelines, saying this is baloney and that they are an embarrassing showing. So the team of 3 win, obviously. Jay and Mariah, who were last, are out. The winners have to yet again eliminate 2 teams and save 1 team. They decide to bring Berna and Emmanuel into the final rounds with them and eliminate Horacio and Nerys and Olivia and Corey. The third challenge is pick up sticks. The 2 teams need to transfer puzzle pieces and solve a 3D puzzle. Asif claims that this is harder with 3 people, and that's a bullshit. Emmanuel and Berna start their puzzle first, and then, what a surprise, the team of 3 wins yet again, and they'll be safe from elimination. TJ tells us that it'll be a girls' day, and they deliberate. Raven wants to put in Melissa because of the drink thing, but Zara's not really down, but Zara gets talked into voting Melissa in. As they're announcing it, Kylan pipes up saying it's going to be hard for Asif to explain to his wife that he swore that he wouldn't nominate Melissa because she's a mother. Asif is instantly seeing red and incensed. He gets in Kylan's face saying, say something about my mother. Kylan didn't say anything about Asif's mother. Then Asif calls Kylan a bitch. Kylan is right here. They did show Asif having those conversations with Melissa. Asif says Kylan started a war with him. TJ has had it and breaks up this fight. He tells the rest of them they'll be voting to nominate a woman to elimination. The challenge winners are safe and can't vote. Some of the girls conspire and decide that they want to target Colleen because she's a strong competitor. They go to the club. Ed tells Colleen that her name is coming up. Melissa is drinking her wine and she's starting. She confronts Asif saying he's flaky and that her 3-year-old daughter has a higher IQ than him. She doesn't throw a drink on him though, so that's on growth. Elsewhere, Emmanuel is dancing with Olivia and Raven, and Colleen is upset about this. James tells Mariah that she's naive and that she trusts the wrong people. Olivia says that James is horrible for Mariah's game and that she's isolating herself from the house. When they get back to the house, it seems like they're watching a movie. I didn't think that they'd do this. Colleen cries to Berna about Emmanuel being flirty with the other girls. Berna gives her some pretty dank advice, telling her that she made a mistake because she knew he already had a girlfriend and still went for it. This was a great moment for Berna, showing that she's so wise and has come a long way this season and is now therapizing the therapist. The producers ask Colleen if she had an intimate moment with Emmanuel. She tells us that they had more than one off camera, and she says that he didn't want to do it on camera because his girlfriend, but now it's too late, he's exposed. The next day, Colleen sits Emmanuel down and tells him that she feels used and embarrassed. Emmanuel admits that he hooked up with Colleen and says that it'll put him in a bad spot in the house and at home, but he's going to keep his head in the game. The international players have a united conversation, and the Americans talk about being sketched out by Mariah and considering voting for Mariah, but Michelle seems not to be down, so it seems like the votes are coming down between Colleen and Mariah. They get to the nomination ceremony and they have brief pleasantries. Then everyone gets right into voting for Colleen, despite there seeming to be a genuine house interest in getting Mariah out. And then they go to elimination, where TJ says the next mercenary is one of the goats, and it's revealed to be Tori. Nerese says she's nervous because Tori has been into Horacio, and Nerese has hooked up with Jordan, but Tori ends up pulling Melissa's hammer, pulling her into elimination. The elimination is called Going Under, and they'll be in water tanks with an underwater puzzle. There's also a suspended answer key that they can pull down. Asif says that he hopes Tori takes the money and Melissa with her. Tori tells Mariah that Bananas is heartbroken at home. I guess Devin maybe told Bananas and Tori. Mariah starts crying to James in the sidelines, and the challenge starts. Kyland is trying to help Melissa, talking to her while she's underwater. It's been obvious that they're giving the returning players things that are right in their wheelhouse, and Tori is focused and organized. Melissa is a bit panicked in the water. Tori asks for a check, but TJ says it's wrong, giving Melissa a little bit more time, and the show does a good job of making it seem like Melissa had a chance, but I fear she did not. So Tori wins the elimination and steals the $10,000 from the prize pot. So we end up losing Melissa here, who is a great challenger. Firstly, she brings a lot to the show in terms of being someone who is made for reality television. She pretty much just does and says whatever the hell she wants, which I definitely respect, because there are a lot of people who are afraid to speak their mind because of fear of what the fans will think about them. In my opinion, we need more people like that on TV, obviously within reason, but it seems like Melissa knows which lines she can and can't cross to be wild and problematic, but still be repeatedly asked to be on these shows. As far as the game goes, it definitely didn't help that there was this USA versus international setup in the house, kind of just getting Big T and Melissa thrown into this disorganized group. I love Big T and Melissa, but it was kind of getting uninteresting seeing them getting repeatedly thrown into eliminations, and I was ready to move on to the next chapter in the game. The next episode was titled Feeling Used. Following Melissa's elimination, Horacio points out that he and Kyland are pretty much on shaky grounds, given that Kyland defended Melissa and got into a fight with Asif last week. Colleen also narrowly avoided elimination and now has her sights set on Mariah. The next day, we get a shot of a kitty, and this is the same house from the Challenge USA, and this property is inhabited by a lot of gorgeous cats, it seems. Kyland finds a note sealed with a kiss from Melissa. He says that she spelled his name right, which is a good start. Glad the bar is set high there. I kind of ship Melissa and Kyland. Kyland says that even though Melissa is gone, he can live vicariously through Horacio and Nerese's showmance. I don't think it works that way, Kyland. Mariah reacts to Tori, telling her that Bananas is heartbroken back home. Mariah feels hurt that she hurt Johnny. Michelle tells her to get her head in the game. Colleen starts becoming skeptical of Michelle and Jay. She sees herself as a pawn of their alliance. Berna also feels the same way. Berna meets with Michelle, asking if they really are allies or if she's being used, so I guess the episode title makes sense. Michelle and Berna have a tense conversation. Michelle is running the game, and Berna just wants to feel like her input is being taken into account. We get the rare Ed content. He talks about his martial arts training and trains Zara and Emmanuel. He says he's a bold guy and wants to make more bold moves, but for now he's camouflage. At the daily, TJ tells them they're halfway done with the season, and the challenge today will be played in 2 teams. It'll be called Sky Ball. Each team will have 4 players in a spinning sphere with balls, Natalie Negrati's worst nightmare. The rest of them will be solving a puzzle to unlock the doors to the sphere. Then they will throw the balls down and get them into their pyramid. The first team done will be the winners and be safe from elimination. So we get our teams. I'll throw up an image of the teams. We have Orange, who seems pretty stacked, and the blue team, who have some of the weaker challengers. The challenge starts, and the spheres are spinning so fast, this would not be for me. Michelle is helping blue do their puzzle from the spinning sphere in the air, and the blue team gets their puzzle done first. They start throwing down their balls, and Nerys gets hit in the face with one. Orange throws their balls too, and this was really chaos. There were balls bouncing everywhere. I feel like there was a missed opportunity for some balls humor. For Orange, Jay gets on his pyramid first and starts putting in the balls. Asif says Uncle Jay is like an octopus, and what do you know, the Orange team ends up winning the challenge, giving Raven her 4th daily win of the season. TJ reveals that it's a guy's day, and Ed, Kyland, James, and Corey will be at risk this week. The winning team want to nominate Kyland, and Horacio doesn't want to do that and feels betrayed that Jay is turning on them. Kyland has a positive attitude when he finds out he's nominated, saying he wants to defend the money, and TJ, who's clearly been agitated that they keep losing the money, loves that attitude. Back at the house, Zara tells Kyland that Horacio was the only person who backed him in the nominations. He feels betrayed by Jay as well. Corey and Jay want to target James, feeling like that will help get Mariah back on their side. They go to the club, which would be so much more fun if there were people there who weren't on the show. Horacio and Kyland conspire against Jay. James feels like he's effed unless he suddenly becomes American. Mariah is campaigning for James, and she makes a deal with Nerys to try to keep their men safe. Berna is further feeling used by Michelle and tells Michelle that she's up Olivia's ass. Michelle at this point is annoyed with Berna, but still wants to support her and be her friend. Mariah coaches James on playing the game, and she's frustrated that he's not trying to play the game at all. So Mariah has become James's campaign manager. Jay speaks with Horacio and Kyland, and they don't settle anything. Kyland and Horacio are still sketched out by Jay. Michelle confronts Mariah for campaigning for James, and Olivia says she's torn because she sees Mariah's point of view. At nominations, Kyland says it's a funeral. He eulogizes his lover Melissa, and now he wants a fresh start. James doesn't really pitch to save himself. Olivia starts off the voting with James, and everyone follows suit. So James and Kyland will be in the draw. At elimination, the champion mercenary is Darrell, who has somewhat not aged a day in like 20 years. Darrell pulls Kyland's pole. Mariah celebrates James being safe on the sidelines, and in confessional says the people on the other team can suck it. The elimination is Firewalker, where they're hanging on a platform that looks like a chandelier, and they have to maneuver their platform to light their flames. I think this is a fair matchup, and anyone could win this. Kyland gets a flame quickly, which is always a great advantage to get a good head start. Darrell catches up, and it's pretty neck and neck throughout. As we know, Dracula Emanuel wants Kyland out of there and is rooting for Darrell. Kyland ends up keeping Darrell and keeping the $10,000 safe. On his way out, Darrell says, Mariah, don't worry, I won't tell Johnny. And like, why doesn't she just tell Johnny at this point? I mean, he already knows. And TJ tells them to get geared up because they're going right into a challenge at night. Moving on to episode 11, My Own Worst Frenemy. I was definitely sick as hell when I recorded this. They get back to the house. Kyland just beat Darrell in elimination, and TJ just told them that he's sending them right into their next challenge. Coming into this, I thought they were going straight to the challenge, but then lightning strikes the house as they're all back in the house eating dinner. I get that they have to change, but they're eating and putting on makeup. There doesn't seem to be much urgency to send them to this challenge. They finally go outside and see skulls, dead baby heads, bloody dream catchers. Olivia says, excuse me, like, who died here? I got a blast. Emmanuel says the set reminds him of his grandma's house. They'll be playing Banquet of Champions in 4 teams of 4. It was kind of sick of them to make them eat dinner right before this. In this challenge, each team will have 4 locked dinner boxes on their table, and they'll be answering trivia questions to bring back crates with numbers on them. The numbers will make a combination to unlock the dinner boxes. The rules to this were confusing, but basically if they get trivia questions wrong, they're slightly inconvenienced. The teams are Corey, James, Mariah, Colleen, Emmanuel, Horacio, Zara, Berna, Olivia, Raven, Jay, and Asif, and Michelle, Nerys, Ed, and Kyland. So the challenge starts and they dart off into the dark. Mariah reflects with photos about her mom working hard to take care of her. She wants to use the money to get her mom and her grandma houses on the same street. Mariah is really going to buy a whole residential block with her $300K. The trivia portion of this is pretty uninteresting and boring. A producer laughs at Mariah in confessional for not knowing who Lewis Hamilton is. I also don't know who that is. Producer, are you going to laugh at me? The things they have to eat are colon stew, stew, brain soup, spicy drink, pig snouts. They start eating at various times and throwing up as usual. Team J gets all of their questions wrong, so they're the last to the station. The eating portion, as usual, is actually really gross. They're all throwing up, and TJ thinks it's hilarious. Mariah, Corey, James, and Colleen win the challenge, and they all have to nominate one woman into the elimination. They end up deciding on Raven, with Corey pushing her name because they have beef. The rest of the house have to go back to the house and nominate another woman for elimination. On the way out, Raven reminds Corey that he's so flip-floppy, and he says blah blah blah, shut the fuck up. The next day, Zara is pissed at Raven, feeling like Raven threw her under the bus, and there's a cute scene of Horacio teaching Nerys some soccer tricks. There's some strategizing around the house. Horacio tells Kyland he doesn't want to target Zara. Kyland points out that Michelle feels like she's running the game. Elsewhere, Asif wants to protect Berna and target Zara. At night, they're having an ABC or anything but clothes party, and did they make these outfits themselves? Because everyone looks great, and this is the best part of the episode for me. There's booty shaking, spanking, nudity. They do a step and repeat. Mariah, James, and Zara have the best costume, and Nerys and Horacio kiss, which they claim is their first kiss, allegedly. Then they start having very serious conversations for a bunch of naked people. Michelle is hoping Laurel isn't the mercenary because she voted her in Ride or Dies, and Laurel wants Michelle's head on a stick. Zara and Raven talk, and they have a pretty civil conversation, which ends up with them forming a Final Two alliance. Michelle starts crying. She says she has a feeling Laurel is coming, and it seems like maybe Michelle was tipped off by production's questions in the confessional because she's convinced that this is happening. And then lightning strikes, and we hear Laurel's laugh. Nerys gets upset that Horacio is going to be busy after the show. Of course, he's Mr. Hot Stuff right now. He's going to be busy, Nerys. She says that she's falling in love with him and cries like she's been rejected. This is just regular drunk crying. I've been there, Nerys. Nerys and Horacio eventually end up in bed together, and Berna comes in saying, "Don't do it where we sleep. I don't want to listen to..." Then she goes to ruin Emmanuel and Raven's hookup, saying no, he has a girlfriend, and Nerys comes to Raven saying she wants to slap the F out of Berna. The next day, Olivia expresses disappointment in Horacio for not working with her in the game, wondering at this point if they're still Ride or Dies or even friends, which is sad as a viewer. At the deliberation, Zara steps up and nominates herself for elimination. She would have been voted in anyway, but I'm glad they didn't waste our time with the votes. So we get to the elimination, and TJ brings in Laurel, the mercenary, who looks great as always. Michelle is terrified. She's shaking in her boots. Before the draw, Laurel even points out that she wants to go against Michelle. Laurel ends up pulling Raven's name, which is anticlimactic. They'll be playing chain reaction, and they need to pull a chain through a pyramid to get a code, which will unlock their color sequence. Basically, their chains have colors on them, and they need to repeat the color sequence with pegs on a board in front of them. Because it's really a memory challenge, this is a pretty fair matchup that anyone could win because it's all about focus, and I'm surprised that they didn't give Laurel something more physical. For the record, I think Michelle would have won this. Michelle is very smart and great under pressure, and Laurel just doesn't have that attention to detail. Thinking of when she missed the peg in the elimination against Ninja that she would have won. So the elimination starts. Laurel is moving faster with the chains, but Raven is trying to focus more on laying out her chains neatly. Laurel finishes first and gets it wrong and gets frustrated. The crowd is helping Raven to check her answers, and Michelle bosses Raven around a little and demands that she checks it. Raven ends up beating Laurel in the elimination, which is a great win for Raven, if anything solidifying that she'll definitely get invited back to the show. The next episode is titled A Legend Returns. Raven is happy because she just defeated Laurel in elimination. Raven is feeling betrayed by James and Mariah for saying her name. Michelle reflects to Berna and Olivia that Laurel being gone is a relief. I feel like the show is really going above and beyond to really highlight this Laurel-Michelle rivalry, and I'm saying it right now, I'm ready for a rival season. Olivia opens up here saying she feels some pressure to be amazing based on how much the fans loved her the last season, and Nerys is in the middle of the house with Horacio and Kyland on one side, and Jay and Michelle on the other side. At this point, I wrote in my notes, remember when Jay, Michelle, Asif, and Nerys made that 4-person alliance that never met again? Nerys video chats with her family and tells them that she's been seeing Horacio romantically, and they're happy about that. Then her family tells her that Olivia's been talking shit about her and calling her broke. How did they find out about this? This season has way too much interference from the outside world. The next day, Olivia and Michelle meet with Nerys in the kitchen. Michelle brings up to Nerys that Horacio has been hanging out with Zara a lot. Seems like they're trying to cause trouble in Nerys' relationship. Nerys is not having it. She feels secure. Olivia continues, saying that Horacio is shady for not telling her that he was coming on this season after Ride or Dies, and she feels like it's selfish and he doesn't care about her friendship. I did find it kind of baffling that Horacio wouldn't tell Olivia that he was coming on this season. Nerys continues to go to bat for Horacio, and Olivia tells Nerys to use her brain. Nerys keeps her cool, but now in her head she probably is like, this girl Olivia thinks I'm broke and dumb as hell. At the daily challenge, they'll be playing We All Fall Down, zone, and they'll be split into 4 teams of 4, 2 teams at a time. They'll get on a platform with a hanging wall between them and try to push the entire team off the platform using the wall. This will be done tournament style, and I like this challenge. It's simple and there will be falling. I like falling. Though I will say I was underwhelmed that there weren't any slow motion falls into the water. Maybe they had the shots and they didn't find them interesting. The teams are Kyland, Michelle, James and Mariah, Ed, Berna, Horacio and Zara, Asif, Raven, Jay, and Colleen, and Emmanuel and Corey will be teamed up with blooming besties Olivia and Nerys. Before the challenge starts, there's some drama because Mariah pulled Michelle aside, asking her not to throw the challenge. They have a little fight in their interview before the challenge. Michelle is offended that Mariah would accuse her of such a thing. The first round is Mariah, Michelle, Kyland, and James against Asif, Raven, Jay, and Colleen. Raven confesses to us that she doesn't care if her team wins because Jay and Asif are against her. James's strength really comes in handy, securing his team the first win. Michelle is vindicated that she's not sabotaging her team. The next round sees Olivia and Horacio's team going head to head, and Corey falls, followed by Olivia, Nerys, and Emmanuel. The final round is Ed, Horacio, Zara, and Berna against Michelle, Kyland, James, and Mariah, and I'm sorry, this is all just a lot of listing names. It ends up being a bit chaotic, but eventually Ed, Horacio, Zara, and Berna are the winners and are safe from elimination, being Zara's 5th win this season. TJ tells the winners that it's going to be a girls' day and they have to nominate one woman to go into elimination. In the deliberation, they all have names they don't want to nominate. Raven's new final 2 with Zara comes in handy because Zara backs her. Berna wants to protect Colleen, but they end up nominating Colleen anyway, which frustrates Berna. The rest of the house will have to nominate one more vulnerable woman for elimination. Afterwards, Asif is speaking with Emmanuel and Colleen. He has an alliance diagram that Colleen drew that seems to have Michelle, Olivia, Jay, and Nerys in the center. Colleen wants to make a move against the people in the middle. Asif placates Colleen, but is not down because he tells us he's still a rider for the Fantastic Four. Asif meets with Jay and Michelle afterwards to instantly rat Colleen out. Colleen is already nominated, so they can't come for her much more. They acknowledge that there's a counter alliance forming in the house led by Kyland and Horacio. In confessional, Michelle refers to the rest of the challengers as worker bees, and she herself is the queen bee. She says she's going to be smooth sailing to the end, and Jay says the first chance he gets, he's coming for Horacio. The next day, Olivia once again points out that Horacio is becoming closer friends with Zara, and she's jealous. Horacio knows that she feels jealous and tells Zara that he still is going to be loyal to Olivia, and he knows that she's on the other side of the house as them. Colleen feels like the counter alliance in the house has a lot of problems that she's trying to manage. For some reason, she tells all of the counter alliance's problems to Jay. As for Raven, she knows she's probably going in, and she's brave and positive about it. Olivia and Jay talk, and at this point, they don't trust Nerys and Horacio anymore. They feel like they've lost them to each other. Jay tells Olivia that the reason that Olivia and Horacio were in the final last season is that everyone loved Olivia, and I don't agree with that statement. Horacio did a lot of the physical work. Kyland, Horacio, and Nerys meet up. The guys are scheming against Michelle. Colleen talks to Kyland later and tells him about her plots and plans. At this point, the house flip is gaining traction. Colleen says that if Kara is the mercenary, she can play to Kara's past, being an underdog, and convince her to pick a vet. In deliberation, Colleen and Raven make statements against the power structure. Everyone ends up voting for Raven. Kyland votes for Mariah, which seems random and makes no sense because even Raven votes for herself. At elimination, when TJ sees Raven is nominated, he's shocked, but I don't know why. Act like you've been here before, TJ. Also, aren't you the one wanting them to protect the money and send in the strong players? TJ announces that the champ will be Kara, and we get the awesome return of Kara looking beautiful. Before she draws, Kara asks the nominees how many times they've been down, and Colleen makes sure to point out that none of the other girls on the stage have been down at all. Kara is instantly down to help the nominees. Kara decides to create chaos and asks the other girls on stage who she should pick to go into elimination, starting with Michelle, who she calls Orange Shirt. Michelle doesn't want to give a name, so Kara says, okay, then it'll be you and I don't need to ask anyone else. Michelle was smart to not give a name here because the house is pretty evenly split, and if she gave a name, it would instantly isolate that person. And of course, Kara ends up pulling the mace and beckoning Orange Shirt, and she does call Michelle into elimination. Oh, and also Kara has fully leaned into her Boston accent now, and I kind of love it for her character. Their elimination is called Blockhead, where they'll be pushing heavy cubes with puzzles printed on the cubes to a platform where they'll then need to assemble the puzzle. I give the physical part of this to Kara, but Michelle is actually incredible with puzzles, so it's a pretty even matchup. In the beginning, Michelle is really struggling with her blocks, and Kara even leaves a block in Michelle's way on purpose, but by the time that Michelle gets to her puzzle, they're pretty even. Michelle ends up getting a lot of help from the house, even though she didn't really need it because from the second they got to this puzzle, it was a conclusion that Michelle was going to win. Kara is confused, she's frustrated, Michelle is focused, she knows exactly what the puzzle should look like just by looking at it, and she beats Kara pretty handily and then gets up on the puzzle to celebrate. This was a really great moment for Michelle because she hasn't done the best in eliminations in her challenge career, so I feel like this episode did a lot for the lore of Michelle Fitzgerald. On the way out, Kara says that she's sure that we'll see her again, and I love that. Episode 13 was titled El Saboteur. The interns who make the episode titles have phoned it in this season. They get back to the house, Michelle feels happy she won, and rightfully so. She's feeling extra motivated to win now. Colleen is continuing her counterwork against Michelle and Jay's alliance. She meets with Raven to recruit her for her cause, and Raven is down but feels like Colleen is playing both sides. Olivia continues her anti-Horacio campaign to Berna, still feeling like Horacio doesn't have her back, even though Horacio literally has had her back. The next day, Nerys encourages Horacio to try to play the game more, and he feels like it's pointless. Kyland is scribbling away in his notebook and tells us that he doesn't thrive in social situations, and he feels targeted by the house. Their daily challenge will be getting tanked, where they'll be in teams of 4. 3 of the 4 of them will be in the back of a tanker truck. The truck is full of water and puzzle pieces, and one person on top will have to use the puzzle pieces they hand them to spell out Challenge Champion on top of the tank. On first impression, this challenge looks really hard. It looks like being inside of a Stanley Cup and getting shaken around. The teams are Kyland, Emmanuel, Mariah, and Zara, Michelle, Asif, Colleen, and Horacio, James, Nerys, Jay, and Raven, and Olivia, Ed, Berna, and Corey, and these teams all seem really evenly matched. The first team has Kyland, Mariah, and Zara in the tank, and Emmanuel up top. They're communicating well, and Mariah pulls through, poking up like a groundhog and giving Emmanuel his little letters. The second team is a bit of a mess with Horacio up top, and it's revealed that Michelle, Asif, and Colleen are throwing the challenge in the tank. Colleen seems to kind of be trying. Team 3 puts Jay on top, and I take back what I said earlier. None of this actually seems very difficult. I was expecting them to be getting sloshed around, but they're really just swimming around in the tank, and it looks kind of relaxing and, dare I say, fun. Team 4 has Ed up top, who seems to be crushing it, and they do really well. After the challenge, TJ tells them that Jay and Ed's teams are the top 2, with Ed, Olivia, Berna, and Corey winning the challenge and being deemed safe. Ed wants to make a power move, and TJ tells them it's a guy's day. As they deliberate, Ed, Berna, and Corey want to nominate Horacio, and Olivia acts like that's not what she wants, even though she's been on an anti-Horacio trip for weeks. It's crazy to me that he's won so many challenges and not nominated her, and on her first win, he goes in because they end up going with Horacio, who stays positive about it. As they nominate, Kyland pops up and has a little spat with Corey. The rest of the house want to nominate Kyland when they get back to the house. Later on, they go to the club and go straight into talking game. Colleen confronts Jay about feeling on the bottom of the alliance, and Jay isn't even trying to give Colleen good answers. Nerys is also annoyed with Jay for nominating Horacio and Kyland, and Jay is losing allies fast. Jay tells Olivia repeatedly that Horacio doesn't care about her, and Jay is upsetting Olivia. They call Nerys over, and Nerys defends Horacio, telling them that Horacio didn't nominate them when he had the chance, which is so true. Horacio finally asks Olivia to talk, and he tells us he wants to talk more with Olivia. This would have been so much better if he was managing this relationship the whole time. The next day, Kyland, Colleen, and Zara meet in the kitchen where they plot their nominations and want to flip the vote on Jay instead of Kyland. Zara goes to pull in James without telling Mariah, so of course James instantly tells Mariah, who runs that information to the rest of the group, including Colleen. Jay has a tantrum and confronts Kyland by the pool, really coming across as a bully, and Kyland calls him aggro. He is being aggro. Zara confesses that Jay is profusely sweating and spiraling. Zara's like, Jay, you better chill. There are a few damage control conversations after Jay's meltdown. Corey and Berna try to keep Colleen in their alliance. Jay tries to smooth things over with Nerys, with little real progress besides them acknowledging that they are friends in real life. Going into this deliberation, it's the most excited I've been to see how the votes go. Horacio opens up the votes with a vote for Jay. Zara, Kyland, and Raven follow suit with voting for Jay. Nerys votes for Emmanuel, which ruins the flip vote plan, and Colleen votes for Kyland. The rest of the votes go to Kyland, so Kyland will be nominated alongside Horacio. At the elimination, TJ reveals that the mercenary will be Brad, so in comes Brad and his eyes and his beard. Brad is a terrifying human, especially in a challenge setting. Brad ends up picking Kyland's name, making Horacio safe. The elimination is called What's Going Down, where they have to climb up and down a tower of cages to collect balls at the bottom and put them in a chute at the top. It seems like Kyland has an advantage because he's a bit more agile than Brad, and he says it's his birthday, so maybe he has that B-Day riz. They get started, and there's praise from the sidelines for Kyland getting an early lead. Brad is a mess, fumbling around. He loses his shoesy. Eventually, Kyland laps Brad, and there's nothing that Brad can do to catch up, really. Kyland puts his final ball in, shouting, "This one's for you, TJ and defeating yet another challenge champ. In summary, this episode was a snooze. It was a great episode for Kylan though, and a lot of the story did keep playing out, but of course it will because it's a 90-minute episode, and if story didn't progress, it would have been a complete waste of time. Moving on to episode 14, titled Don't Let TJ Decide. They get back to the house and Kylan is rightfully pumped after beating another champ. Colleen is still cooking up her plan against Jay and Michelle and calls herself Moline, I guess because she was the mole. Jay coaches Asif on playing the game and they both agree they think they deserve an Emmy for their performance this season. Olivia and Nerys tell Kylan that he was always going to be the house vote. Elsewhere, Michelle, Jay, and Mariah lick their wounds, feeling like failures for not eliminating an opponent. Michelle points out that all of their targets have stayed in the last few weeks and are now banding up against them. Michelle tells her alliance that they're losing the numbers and she's stressed and says it's all a mess. Horacio and Nerys snuggle on the poolside daybed, with Nerys becoming more and more loyal to Horacio on a game level. Olivia tells us that it's been a struggle watching Nerys and Horacio get close, but she's more and more willing to ride with Horacio in the game. At the daily challenge, they are still at 16 players, as they have been for like a month now. TJ tells us that they'll be playing in a mini final called Off in the Distance. They'll be in teams of 4, carrying a stick down a path with 3 checkpoints, with puzzles that they need to complete along the way to get puzzle pieces after every station, and then at the end they have to build their puzzle. The teams are Kylan, Michelle, James, and Mariah, Horacio, Asif, Zara, Olivia, Nerys, Ed, Jay, and Colleen, and Corey, Emmanuel, Raven, and Berna. At the first checkpoint, each person is assigned a bag of puzzle pieces hanging from a rope. They have to saw their rope against the apparatus to free their puzzle pieces. Asif conducts his team like an orchestra to get them off to an early lead, complete with orchestral score that he asks for in the confessional. Moline really struggles with her rope, really setting her team back. At the second checkpoint, they have to run their bags through some ropes that are tangled around trees. This one is really just an inconvenience because it's not difficult at all. At some point, Colleen falls, and Nerys points out that she doesn't see Colleen as a threat anymore. The third checkpoint is a puzzle where they have to count all the squares in an image and then multiply it by 39. It looks like hard math. Jay's team, who are the last ones to get there, decide to just try all multiples of 39 instead of trying to count them in the image, and they go from last place to first. Their final puzzle is taking a bunch of cylinder pieces and making them into level pillars. This is Michelle's specialty, and she even announces that she won Survivor with this puzzle, and they flash back to it, and Michelle, Kylan, James, and Mariah end up winning the challenge with Michelle's great amount of help. I wish she could have kicked the puzzle, but it was in a thing. TJ tells them they have to nominate a man for elimination, and they show Jay's face looking like his life is flashing before his eyes. Michelle wants to nominate Horacio, and Kylan isn't down for it, but he's outvoted, and he sees some benefit in Horacio being nominated because it forces the house to use their brains and vote in someone new. After Horacio is nominated, James and Nerys have a shouting match that is calmed down when Horacio gives James the lightest approach. TJ warns them that the mercenary coming is no joke, and they head back to the house where Michelle and Olivia talk about the numbers and the house being split. Olivia tells us she's leaning towards jumping ship and riding with Horacio and Kylan. At night, the challengers are going to the club and they're stunting in the hallway on the way out. At the club, Asif tries to lock down Nerys' allegiance, and she tells us that she's still loyal to the Fantastic Four, but is very tempted to say fuck them and turn on them. There's a random shot of Raven twerking on Kylan and him very much enjoying it, and dang, Melissa's pillow isn't even cold yet. Michelle corners Horacio, and he tells us that he hates how Michelle and Jay are playing the game. The next day, they strategize. Asif thinks Ed will be the house vote. Michelle and Mariah grow sketchy of Olivia playing both sides, and Michelle gets emotional about the house divide. Kylan decides to come for Jay's group by nominating Emmanuel, so the votes are going to come down between Emmanuel and Ed, with Olivia being a swing vote with a big decision. At the nominations, we get a vote split, but Nerys and Olivia turn on Jay and vote for Emmanuel. Moline is still mulling out and votes for Ed. They end up at a stalemate 6-6 vote. They go to a revote, and Corey chickens out and changes his vote to himself because he's afraid of the consequences if they tie. Ed last minute changes his vote to Jay, and they go to stalemate again. I thought this was a pretty badass move from Ed. Afterwards, Michelle confronts Nerys and Olivia in the bedroom, and then Jay comes in hot and heavy, and Olivia's like, Jay, you better chill. They get ready for the elimination, and one thing about this show is that they will show Horacio getting dressed in slow motion every time they have to go anywhere. At elimination, TJ tells them it was a big mistake to go to stalemate. CT gives the performance of a lifetime looking scary backstage. Enter CT holding the chaos mace, or hammer, whatever the hell they call it. The girls are laughing and loving CT, and the men are all soiling themselves. CT gives a teaser for his next return, saying he's got to see what he's got to do before season 40. TJ tells CT that he can select anyone to go against except Kyland and James because they won the challenge. CT turns to Horacio and tells him that he's going to give him a break that he never got when he was a newbie, and he tells Jay that he's letting him off the hook, which was shocking to me. I really thought that CT was going to come for Jay's ass. CT ends up taking a diplomatic approach, picking the person he says he knows the least, who is Asif. As they're reacting to Asif getting called down, Jay rejects a hug from Nerys that he doesn't want. Jay is so pissed that he is transformed into a different person. Asif and CT will be playing Mind Grind. They need to push a heavy wheel to unveil a math equation involving prime numbers. Even the thought of this equation makes my brain hurt. They start off and Asif is keeping up with CT physically, pushing what he calls the big dreidel. They get to the equation about the same time, with CT at a slight lead. And CT is a genius. He's so good with puzzles and math equations, but Asif doesn't know what prime numbers are, and Asif panics. CT takes it nice and slow, and CT does end up winning, taking $10,000 from the pot and eliminating Asif from the game, telling TJ on the way out that he'll see him soon. And we have to say goodbye to Asif here in an intense and emotional elimination. Everyone gives him big hugs, and Asif gets a "take care of yourself, have a good one" from TJ. Not an "I'm sure we'll see you again." I don't know if it's just me, but I'm always reading into what TJ says to them. Like, sometimes he's like, "I know I'm gonna see you again, wank wank." But sometimes the goodbye from TJ seems very final, and this one seemed very final to me. But I do hope that we see Asif again. He's such a fun character. I feel like he really didn't do too much this season. Besides being Jay's sidekick, he was so confident in their Fantastic Four alliance, and I'm surprised this alliance didn't last a bit longer. Maybe Asif sold it to me. This episode, when he was at multiple times so confident that his plan was going to work out and saying he deserved an Emmy, I was like, wait, is Asif going home? Then he gets randomly called out by CT and plucked out of the game. Like I said earlier, I hope we see him again. I don't really think he's lived up to his potential, but we'll see him again every Friday, bearing all on the pit crew on Drag Race. Episode 15 is titled Welcome to Conquest. The challengers return to the house from Asif's elimination, and Jay is pissed. He feels like Kyland is laughing at Asif's expense. They're heating up in the kitchen, and Jay calls Kyland a clown. Kyland goes to Michelle and tells her that Kyland is being personal. Michelle is not happy that Jay is doing all this stuff behind her back. Kyland lays out for us that his alliance is he, Horacio, Nerys, Raven, Zara, and Olivia has now finally joined them. He says they're going to war. Later, their clock starts counting down from 24 hours, which means they'll have a nighttime challenge the next day. Olivia is head and hands about that. I want to talk about this clock for a second. The clock's not doing it for me. I'd rather you surprise these people with something than give them 24 hours to know that a surprise is coming. They're not even anxious about what comes at the end of the clock because they know it's going to be some bullshit either way. In later strategizing, Mariah lays out their alliance, which has so many more people than the other side as of now. The next day, Michelle and Jay confront Nerys about her hand in taking the vote to a stalemate. Nerys tells us she doesn't see how it's her fault that it went to a stalemate, but her vote truly did matter, and it was her fault in that way. She tells them to kiss her ass and walks away. Then Michelle and Jay start arguing about how he feels that he kept her safe, and Michelle storms off. Raven and Zara meet, and Raven tells us that her father is going through chemo right now, so that's her motivation in the game. The two of them are committed to having each other's backs. They get to the nighttime challenge, and TJ announces that they're in conquest mode, where it's going to be an individual game. The challenge will be called Dark Tide. It's going to be played in 3 rounds, timed individually. In each round, 5 of them will be strapped to a boat that will take them out into the water, then drop them in the middle of the water. They have to get on paddle boards to collect rings, and then paddle back to shore and throw a ring on a ring toss, and then they're safe. Or done. Also, TJ says in Conquest, the last place player will be purged from the game. The first round is Emmanuel, Horacio, Raven, Nerys, and Colleen. Horacio, of course, is nailing the challenge. They even give him a cool song to be awesome to. Raven is doing the worst, really struggling from the moment the challenge starts. Horacio gets his ring first, followed by Emmanuel, Colleen, Nerys, and Raven in last, who seemingly gets her ring on the first toss. Round 2 is Zara, Corey, Michelle, Mariah, and Kyland. Michelle is stressed that she'll be purged from the game, as is Corey. The spectators point out that Mariah is going the wrong way, and Mariah announces she doesn't know how to paddle. She starts doggy paddling, which helps. As a production note, this challenge being at night made it so hard to see what was going on my TV. Kyland finishes first, followed by Michelle, Corey, Zara, and Mariah in last. The final round is Olivia, Ed, Berna, James, and Jay. Olivia starts off on a bad note with GoPro footage that makes her out to be drowning. Ed comes in first, then Jay, James, Olivia, and Berna in last. I wish I had more to say about this, but it was Game of Thrones finale dark. TJ announces that the bottom two, separated by seconds, were Mariah and Raven, and the last place finisher and eliminated is Raven. She gets emotional, and this was really sad, especially because she was just talking about wanting to help her dad. I'm shocked to see her go here because she's been crushing it in the game, winning multiple eliminations and really having a strong showing for herself this season. She was involved in the house flip. I thought that house flip was going to put her in a really good place in the game in a majority alliance, but in the beginning of this episode, it seems like there's still that giant majority that's going to be hard to crack. Aside from being a great competitor, she had some great moments creating a potential new vendetta with Melissa. I think the drink throwing thing really helped her to get an invitation to a future season. I would like to see Raven back again, and I also think there are some unresolved storylines, especially with Johnny. TJ then tells them that Ed won the challenge. As the winner of the challenge during Conquest, you get to start a safety chain, and the last 3 people in the safety chain are going to have to go into a 3-way elimination. Instead of going to the club this episode, they go out on a yacht the next day. Michelle and Jay are trying to mend fences. At the same time, Nerys vents to Olivia about the alliances, and they bond together. Ed weighs out his decision. Nerys says Ed is playing a scared game. Zara and Nerys pitch to Ed to switch sides, and then Michelle wants there to be a very tight plan to force Nerys to save Olivia over Horacio. Corey calls this plan scummy, and I agree. It seemed mean to me. The best strategy if you want Kyland or Horacio out would have been to sacrifice one of your strong males to go against them in elimination. TJ shows up at the house for the selection process. Ed starts off the chain. I hate having to read them out in order, but the order is Emmanuel, Berna, Colleen, Corey, Michelle, Jay, Mariah, James, then Nerys, who does have to make the final decision between Zara, Olivia, Horacio, and Kyland. Horacio asks her not to save him, and Nerys saves Olivia. I'm happy that Nerys chose her friend in the end, but also I feel like Horacio would be fine. Nerys calls Jay nasty for this whole thing. Afterwards, Zara, Olivia, and Nerys unwind, with Zara also feeling betrayed by James. At the elimination, TJ tells them they'll be racing to complete 3 puzzles with obstacles in between. I'm worried about Horacio and Zara here, as puzzles may not be their strong suit, but I'm not worried about Kyland at all. They get started, and Horacio is whipping through the obstacles like they're nothing. The puzzles are a Sudoku, a cipher, and a color sorting beads thing. Kyland and Horacio team up to complete their ciphers. There was one point where Zara had to climb this seemingly huge wall, and it was awesome that she got over it. The elimination was not fair and balanced. The physical aspect of this was way more part of it than any of the puzzles, which were pretty easy and just an inconvenience along the way. Zara was kind of thrown to the wolves here as Horacio comes in first. They tried to edit it like it was close, but it so wasn't. Kyland finishes shortly after Horacio, and we have to say goodbye to Zara. I think this was a shitty way for her to go because, as I said, to put this 5'6" girl in an elimination against 2 fit, tall guys that includes scaling a 7-foot wall, and she still did it, but it brings respect to her name. Overall, I didn't want her to be the winner of the season, as I'm not that attached to her. With her having been on some seasons I didn't pay that much attention to, though I watched them, and she didn't have much content on this season besides her very short rivalry with Raven that ended up being a Final 2 alliance that gets sniped out of the game here at the first opportunity. On paper, if it were only based on social strategy, Raven and Zara would be in a really good spot in the game, but given the challenge aspect added into it, they got really unlucky here. I think she's a strong competitor, and I'd like to see her come back and do some more traditional eliminations because this setup won right. Moving on to episode 16, titled Family Knows Best. After the elimination, Kyland and Horacio like that nobody else will know what the elimination is. Kyland wants to prank everyone by coming back alone and pretending Horacio was eliminated. Kyland acts emotional, acting like Horacio sacrificed himself. Olivia gets emotional about Horacio's fake elimination. She's beside herself, feeling like Horacio sacrificed himself for her, and she commits to being loyal to him. Kyland admits he didn't expect this prank to go this way. Then Horacio comes back, and Nerys tells Horacio in Spanish that everyone was excited for him to be gone. Their alliance celebrates, the other alliance is shook, especially Corey and Jay, who have taken multiple shots at Kyland and Horacio and can't get them out. Berna tells Horacio she feels for them, and Kyland snips at her, basically saying that if she felt bad, she would help them in the game, and they start fighting with him telling Berna she's not nice and confessing that everyone thinks she's rude, and he's finally the one to tell her about herself. It doesn't really seem like Berna deserved this heat in this case. She seemed like she was trying to be empathetic, but things escalate and the fight seems to fizzle out. But remember the good old days when an argument on this show would last more than 20 seconds. Later, Berna opens up to Emmanuel about her mom being sick and her not being able to communicate with her mother, and Emmanuel gets emotional too. Emmanuel is inspired to call his mom, who is living her best life, out fishing. They head to the daily challenge called End of the Line, where they have to rappel down from a tower and stop their rappelling before hitting the water. Whoever gets further down the fastest wins. If multiple people hit the water, the person who hit the water the slowest loses and is purged. This challenge seemed pretty fair in that anyone could win it. Also, there were a few ways that you can go about it, with different strategies you could take to not get purged, either by going down further than somebody else or hitting the water faster than somebody else who fell before you. James, Mariah, and Horacio are first. James falls down early and Horacio gets pretty far down. Mariah stays on enough to save herself, but in the process, Horacio and James seem to both burn their hands on the rope. Michelle, Emmanuel, and Kyland are next. Emmanuel spanks his tush to taunt the group. At this point, all they have to do is not fall to be safe, and they all get pretty close to the bottom at their own pace. Nerys, Jay, and Ed are next. Jay has an advantage being a rock climber, and he gets to the bottom. Nerys eventually does too, and Ed ends up falling after trying when he didn't even have to because Jay had already beat him. Colleen and Olivia are next, and they both complete it, with Corey and Berna being last. Corey ends up falling, and Berna does a trick. Getting to the results, TJ announces that the purged player is Ed, so we have to say farewell to Ed, who brags about his social game and never having gone to elimination this season. Personally, I think Ed has had a really boring run this season. He had some funny moments here and there, like Big T trying to bribe him. I'm sure to the other players he's a hoot, but I know I'm gonna completely forget that he was ever on this season. Also, he brags about his social game, but I feel like he made some really boneheaded mistakes throughout this run. Most notably, winning the challenge last week and just doing everyone else's bidding for them. Also, making the decision to continue to try to win the challenge when Jay had already finished, resulting in him being purged from the entire game. I wasn't really excited for him to be on this season, and I've seen enough. As he walks away, Olivia says Karma's a bitch, which I think is a bit brutal, and that's coming from me. I just roasted his game, but I don't think this elimination was karma. The top two in the challenge are Jay and Horacio, and TJ really lays on thick that they were separated by seconds, and the winner ends up being Jay. Back at the house, Kyland and Horacio want to find a way to protect Olivia and Nerys from going into elimination with them. Michelle, Olivia, and Nerys seem to be working together in this round, and they ask Jay his thoughts. Jay wants to save Emmanuel first, and Michelle calls Jay an asshole in confessional for not putting her first. The girls propose an alliance with Jay, but he says it's out of his hands. What's that supposed to mean? He literally has all of the power in this moment. They're going to the club, and they play BB Rexa and David Guetta. They proceed to have a seemingly terrible time doing a Broadway kick line and then getting right into game talk at the club. These people never have any fun. Berna campaigns to Jay to save Colleen. They call Michelle over, but Michelle is not down because she's trying to drag 15 people to the final. In a one-on-one, Michelle is pissed at Jay because he wants to send Olivia into elimination. Michelle can't get Jay to see her point of view and gets emotional and confessional about it. Back at the house, there's more gaming, more confessionals explaining how the picking will work. Jay gets frustrated holding up his pad like a little baby and then telling Michelle she can have it her way. Then Michelle gets frustrated with her pink little pad. Mariah gets agitated with Michelle for putting James at risk. Privately, Nerys tells Michelle and Olivia that she wants to fall on the sword for Kyland and Horacio, and Olivia talks Nerys out of quitting. Nerys reminds us again that her brother told her that Olivia said she was broke, which has never mattered or been proven true yet. She says, even though Olivia called me broke, I have her back. In the picking, Jay begrudgingly picks Michelle first. TJ calls him and Michelle out for looking miserable during this. The dramatics here are too much. Michelle saves Olivia, who then saves Mariah, which is shocking, and even Horacio feels backstabbed. They flash back to Olivia cutting a last-minute deal to save herself and do this. Nerys confesses she should have listened to her brother. Maybe Olivia did say she was broke. The picking goes Mariah, then James, Emmanuel, Berna, Colleen, and Corey. Leaving Nerys, Horacio, and Kyland in the elimination, they start popping off at each other. Berna and Nerys have words. Even TJ feels for Nerys in this moment, as she's been backstabbed by Olivia after saving her last week. Horacio gets emotional to Nerys in the bedroom. Jay comes in playing innocent nice guy and he gets emotional. Everyone is crying. Kyland confronts Olivia and Nerys meet in private. Nerys finally brings up that her brother said not to trust her and she still trusted her. So they end up heading to elimination. The odds are stacked against Nerys. Hopefully there isn't a 10-foot wall she has to climb. TJ tells them that this time 2 players will be going home, which I found to be brutal. It's pretty much the same setup as last time, but with some different obstacles and different puzzles. Looks like they put some footholds in the giant wall to climb, which makes it a bit more fair. They take off and round the corner to see boxes they have to jump over. Nerys sees the obstacle and is like, what the F? As a viewer, you're definitely feeling for Nerys here. They get to the puzzles, and these puzzles are a tanagram, counting chains, and the Michelle Fitzgerald honorary stacking challenge. Nerys does her chains while the guys do their tanagram and gets a huge lead. Then she does her tanagram before any of them do as well. The elimination comes down to Nerys and Horacio, and it's hard to watch the challenge without feeling like either of them are trying to let the other win, as they're both struggling with their final puzzle stations. Nerys ends up winning her station and triumphantly winning the elimination in one of the most incredible upsets I've ever seen on the show, eliminating Kyland and Horacio, 2 powerhouses in the game, and she walks back to the house triumphantly and alone, saying she was falling in love with Horacio, and she's back with a vengeance against Olivia. Firstly, we say goodbye to Kyland, who I think had his best run of all of his shows on this season, ending up in a rootable underdog position, winning a few really tough eliminations against champions. Not only is he a great competitor, but he brings a lot to the show in terms of being unafraid to have drama. He had multiple fights, often about minute things. He also got some great personal content with him talking about the communities that he represents, as well as his relationship with Melissa, which was interesting and seems like a storyline that's not complete yet. So I feel like he brings a lot to the show right now and definitely is going to be invited back for multiple seasons. Speaking of invitations, we also say goodbye to Horacio, who obviously has a permanent invitation to return to the challenge forever. He's the golden child. MTV finds him very marketable. He's the center of all the promotional materials. Last season was the story of him being a great competitor and being loyal to Olivia. This season, he gets a better storyline with his relationship with Nerys and him being loyal to his allies throughout. Early in the season, he's pretty much just being a pushover, letting the game happen around him, but I think Nerys really encouraged him to get out of his shell. He's obviously a super nice guy, but I think things happening like Olivia blindsiding him and Nerys, he and his allies being in an inescapable situation where they're in the minority in the house, really should teach him a lesson for next time about being more active in the game and not getting walked all over. But I love Horacio. I'd be super surprised not to see him on season 40. I'm really surprised that he's eliminated. Episode 17 was titled Feel the Burn, and this was also the week where I learned how to record audio for clips. Nerys returns to the house from elimination and tells them that she's there alone. They don't believe her because of Kyland's little prank last week, but obviously eventually they see that she's telling the truth. She refuses to give them information about the elimination and says,
also all of you guys.
Olivia cries to Michelle in the bedroom, and Michelle points out that Olivia made her decision out of survival, not malice. Michelle encourages Olivia to talk things over with Nerys and patch things up. Jay and Mariah celebrate and chest bump, then Emmanuel joins them to triple chest bump. Jay says that he still wants to look out for Nerys. Olivia and Nerys talk. Olivia tearfully apologizes to Nerys and explains herself.
I have no one to blame but myself. I did a really big L.
Poolside, Berna tells Michelle she feels betrayed that Michelle put Olivia before her in the selection. Berna also doesn't like what Michelle did to Nerys. Michelle then goes to join Olivia and Nerys, who are still talking, and now Nerys says she wants to run an all-girl final. They head to their daily called Drum Roll. They'll be on a suspended drum that spins over the water. The first 5 who fall go to a loser's bracket to see who'll be purged. The top 5 go to a winner's bracket to find a winner for the week. You instantly know this challenge is going to be pretty fun to watch. They get started. Some of them are running, which is making the barrel spin faster. Some are just hanging there for dear life. Olivia falls first, face planting into the water. I worry so much for Olivia's face on this show. Michelle is next, followed by Colleen, Mariah, and Emmanuel, making up the loser's bracket. Corey, James, Nerys, Jay, and James play out the winner's round. Berna is skittering on the wheel like a little mouse as Corey, Nerys, and Jay fall. Jay almost lands on Nerys, which made me nervous. It comes down to James and Berna, who are both running, but in the end, Berna wins the challenge handily. The real intrigue is the loser's bracket, where they're all attempting to run like Berna, to varying degrees of success, because Michelle stumbles early and is hanging on with just her arms for a long while, but eventually her arms give out and she takes a hard sideways fall into the water, which looks like it really hurt. So we end up losing Michelle here, who must be exhausted after 2 seasons in a row. This is definitely Michelle's best showing as far as the challenge goes. She pretty much dominates the entire social game this season, firstly because she is a really gifted social player, but also because she was on both Spies, Lies, and Allies and Ride or Dies, so she ends up being really well connected, which becomes more of a blessing than a curse. It ended up weighing greatly on her how she was trying to bring all of the people that were pretty much left in this episode to the final, and I feel like she thinks she's gonna have a big target on her in future seasons because of all this. Really, she kept her hands pretty clean. She didn't really have to decide between these people because she was purged. A lot of the people from this season she had hands in eliminating we're never gonna see again. But Michelle made a huge enemy out of Berna. Berna's been on the official challenge podcast and she hates Michelle's ass. So managing Berna was a failure for Michelle, but for the most part I saw more good than bad. She beat Cara in that elimination. That was really impressive. I'm still doubtful if she can ever win a final, but overall I don't think the backlash from this season will harm her in future seasons. Also, the storyline with Michelle and Callum was insane and still unresolved. So the rest of the players get back to the house and Olivia campaigns to Berna and Colleen to do an all-women alliance. At night, they're having a party in the backyard. It looks like they're having slightly more fun than when they go to the club, but it looks like they just tell them to dance for like 5 minutes every episode just so they can make it look fun on TV. Then they get right to the game talk. Olivia gets support from Jay. She's nervous about going into elimination. Corey and Colleen bond over feeling like they've been used in the game, and Corey wants Colleen to pick him before she picks Jay. Berna tells Jay and Emmanuel about the all-girls alliance, so I guess so much for my dreams. Berna wants James, Nerys, and Olivia to be in the elimination. Later, Colleen and Berna talk to Jay again, further trying to sabotage Nerys to Jay to keep Jay from saving her. They are telling him things that Nerys actually did say. Nerys tells us she's keeping the format of the elimination a secret, so that's her advantage, but she talks to Jay and he tells her he doesn't plan to save her based on what he was told by the other girls. Nerys gets heated with Jay and then confronts the girls.
Colleen, you're a dumb, fake ass, lying ass bitch. So don't start with me. Lying ass, dumb ass bitch.
Jay comes over to remind Nerys he's not picking her.
I'm not picking you.
Don't
I'm your
care.
friend.
No,
but
I'm not
game-wise,
your friend.
This chain of events felt icky to me. Everyone in the house turning on Nerys, even her friend Jay. Olivia stands up for Nerys and Nerys gets the last word.
You're literally such a bitch.
I'm done.
Okay.
Getting to the selection, Berna chooses Corey first, flashing back to him making a pinky swear deal with she and Colleen. Next is Colleen, Emmanuel, Jay, who makes a speech about how Nerys crossed him in the game. So he saves Mariah, sending Nerys, Olivia, and James to elimination. TJ is shocked.
Jay, you cried last time we were right here.
So they get ready and head to elimination, where TJ tells them that yet again, 2 of them will be eliminated. Same elimination rules apply. Complete the 3 puzzles in any order. The puzzles this time are flicking switches to match a key, a slide puzzle, and getting in cold water and putting eliminations in order. James gets off to an early lead, but he's huffing and puffing like Asthmatic John on the Traitors. James gets the switches done first, but that's easy, and Nerys smashes her slide puzzle and the switches while the other 2 are still on the slide puzzle. James and Olivia are stuck on their slide puzzle for a long time. Nerys gets in her bucket to solve her puzzle, and without much suspense at all, she wins quickly. They couldn't even make this look suspenseful because Nerys kicked James and Olivia's asses. So yet again, we get 2 eliminations here. I'll talk about Olivia first because she had less flags. I was so excited for Olivia to come back. I've loved her on her other appearances. It was really awful what happened to her with the golf ball, but she comes in here. Obviously, she's upset that Horacio didn't tell her he was coming on the show. She was kind of invisible on the show for the first half, but during that time when she was invisible on the show, she was playing a good game. Then when all this stuff starts happening with Horacio and Nerys, it just seems like it wasn't fun to be Olivia this season. She cut that deal last episode really to save herself in the game. It definitely wasn't a good look for her to do that. The fans did not like this. In this episode, it was nice to see her feel remorseful and apologize to Nerys. Something that's been keeping me up at night is, did Olivia call Nerys broke, yes or no? I'd love to see Olivia back again for future seasons. I think Olivia and Nerys could be contenders for a future Rivals season. The drama with Horacio is still unresolved. Horacio publicly said that Olivia still hasn't apologized, so that could be interesting in the future. Overall, I just think Olivia needs to have a little bit more fun, but I think that there's a lack of fun on this show in general. We also lose James here. So James comes into the season after breaking his face in the last one. I wasn't really excited for him to come back. He was in the pretty doomed UK alliance in the beginning, then gets into this relationship with Mariah, which really saves his ass for a good amount of time. I feel like he was really on the bottom of a lot of people's lists here. He really has no strategic game. I don't think he could ever win a final. Anytime he was on my screen, I found it to be unpleasant. I don't think there's any season or any theme that would make me want to see him back on the show. When I say I'm good, I'm good. So let's move on. TJ calls Nerys the Dragon Slayer and says he's very proud of her. Meanwhile, Mariah is back at home looking like me listening to Avril Lavigne on the school bus in 2007, but Nerys comes back to the house and the other players are so nasty to her. Mariah's rightfully upset and cries about James being gone. The episode ends with them going to the club and TJ shows up to ruin the fun and I guess let them know that they made it to the final, which leads right into episode 18, the beginning of the end. and TJ tells them they're in the final. He says it'll be the hardest final of all time. Doubtful. Nerys reminds us that nobody's had to fight as hard as she has to get there. She's right about that. I thought they were going to start this hard final right there in the club, but no, the hardest final ever starts with them having gorgeous brunch in the morning with a freshly baked cake and letters from home. Emmanuel gets a letter from his girlfriend and they flash back to him flirting with half the house. For the most part, these letters are really sappy and boring. Corey breaks down getting letters from his family and he's happy that his dad is proud of him, which is nice. Colleen gets a letter from her mom and Berna gets one from her brother and is upset that she didn't get one for her mom, so she breaks down. That night, a full 24 hours after TJ showed up at the club, they finally head to the final. They show up to the hardest final ever, and TJ greets them just like he's going to a baby shower in his baby blue button down, very intimidating. TJ then goes down the line and one by one, in agonizing detail, explains their storyline so far. He says the final will be in 3 parts: Control, where they'll be working together, Chaos in pairs, and Conquest, where they'll be individual, and allegedly they'll go 26 miles, which seems like a lot, but we'll see how much time they have to rest in between and have cake. The Control challenge sees them all tied together, gathering ropes that will make up a big puzzle in the end put together. They have to get this done in an hour, or TJ says that $16,000 will be taken from the prize. They start off having to chug a tuna and beet shake, and this is just having them eat for no reason, and they all just throw it up the second they put it into their mouths, as the producers clearly don't care if you spit your food out as long as you performatively make it look like you're throwing up on TV. They start running, and Nerys thinks Berna isn't giving this her all. They search the crusty, dusty, musty-ass barracks for the ropes. They each have to get 3 ropes of the same color. Corey gets all the heavy orange ropes, which seem to be the heaviest, so he decides to leave first. The others follow behind and find out that Corey dropped a rope along the way, so they summon him to come back and get his rope. Jay is so mad at Corey, he spits out of anger.
Makes me want to spit.
At this point, everyone is annoyed with Corey, but he comes back with all the ropes, and they have 2 minutes left to spare, and they end up failing miserably and losing the $16,000.
You guys all did great.
You know, these challengers care a lot about their $16,000 they're losing now, but they didn't care about the money they were losing when they were throwing Big T to the Wolves a few weeks ago. TJ tells them that the first place prize is still $250,000, and the only thing affected is how much the runner-ups make, and he tells them that they're having an elimination right there on the spot, so they have to all vote to put someone into elimination. The majority of them vote for Corey based on the events of the day, including Corey voting for himself, but Emmanuel and Colleen vote for Nerys. Corey gets to pick his opponent and decides to spare Nerys, announcing that he wants to see a woman win if it's not him, and he picks Jay to go against. Jay says he's pissed that he couldn't play a perfect game.
Makes me want to spit.
The elimination is gathering 3 bags of puzzle pieces, then stacking them on a wobbly board. Corey is way faster than Jay to collect the puzzle pieces, but Jay plans to beat Corey in the puzzle. Corey gets to his puzzle first, and this puzzle really is very Survivory to me. The puzzle happens really quickly with Corey beating Jay.
He got sent in because he wasn't nice to us. The people that are left were used and abused by everyone else in the house.
And on his way out, Jay tells Nerys that she better win, and Nerys says,
Karma's a bitch.
and this elimination really does feel like karma. So we have to say goodbye to Jay here, who comes into this season one of the more veteran players in the game. He's pretty well connected himself, and then he has Michelle, who's also really well connected. Through this, he's kind of on his high horse for the majority of the season, really just being a huge asshole to people that he was supposed to be working with, and even frustrating Michelle with ruining her best efforts to try and keep both of them safe. I think the best of Jay this season was when he was terrified of going against CT in elimination. You know CT does not want to be partnered with Jay in a future Rivals season, so he forgave and forgot. So we didn't get to see that rematch, wah wah. After that, he did the unthinkable and made an enemy out of sweet angel golden child Horacio, and really just became a big villain in the house, losing Michelle, who was really helping him out strategically. And then here, Corey pulls him into elimination. I don't think Corey pulls Jay into elimination if Michelle is still there, or if he put a little bit more energy into his relationship with Corey. So for the most part, I think this elimination for Jay is pretty self-inflicted. Even in the end, he was so confident in his ability to beat Corey in the puzzle. Then he just didn't win. And I know last week I defended Michelle, saying I didn't think she'd get big backlash from this season and future seasons. I think Jay is going to have a lot of people coming for that ass heavy. So they move on to their chaos portion, where they'll be playing in pairs, and this chaos section was really boring because they play 5 rounds so they can all pair up together. Out of fairness, it makes sense, but I wish there was a way I could do a recap without having to talk about these rounds. The prize for the chaos portion is pretty mid because the one person with the best time just gets an advantage. In round 1, the pairs are Mariah and Berna, Emmanuel and Colleen, and Corey and Nerys. Mariah and Berna start off in last because apparently Berna hurt her groin. At the checkpoint, they need to untangle cage balls and then roll them down to a goalpost. Emmanuel and Colleen finish this first, followed by Corey and Nerys. Berna, who's hurt, is struggling, and TJ is horrified and disappointed at her, but they complete it. And I don't mean to rag on TJ, but she's obviously hurt, and he's looking at her like she's disgusting. The next pairs are Corey and Colleen, Nerys and Mariah, and Emmanuel and Berna, who's beside herself and apologizes to Emmanuel. They have to kayak out to find TJ. Berna and Emmanuel actually take off in their kayak and get to TJ first, where they have to do a tangram puzzle on the table. Berna and Emmanuel get it done first, followed by Colleen and Corey, and Nerys and Mariah time out. Round 3 pairs are Nerys and Colleen, Berna and Corey, and Mariah and Emmanuel. They have to do trivia and saw the rope of the correct answers. Colleen famously sucked at this challenge when they did it earlier in the season, so Nerys has to do pretty much all the work here. I don't see why Colleen couldn't help out more in this case. Nerys ends up hurting her hand doing the ropes by herself. On the second question, Mariah potentially gets hurt.
This vagina wrapped me.
But Emmanuel and Mariah finish first, followed by Corey and Berna, and Colleen and Nerys time out again. Round 4 pairs are Nerys and Emmanuel, Berna and Colleen, and Corey and Mariah. This is an eating challenge. They have to eat eyeballs, stomach, and jalapeno shots.
This looks like a turd.
Of course, there's plenty of shots of them throwing up. I think there's some folks who watch the show only for the puking. Corey and Mariah finish theirs first. TJ gets annoyed again, this time with Colleen for not supporting Berna, and Nerys and Emmanuel finish first, with Berna and Colleen timing out because Berna can't eat her turds, and Corey pukes his guts out into the sea. They get in their final pairs, Berna and Nerys, Colleen and Mariah, and Corey and Emmanuel. TJ mocks Nerys.
I'm over you, TJ.
I'm over you, TJ.
They have to chug another gross drink and then unwind bags on a post and balance their balls down a track into a box. This looks like a lot of fun. Berna and Nerys work well together and get it done quickly, with Corey and Emmanuel following, and Colleen and Mariah can't figure it out, so they time out. After all this effort, there's little suspense when Emmanuel wins the challenge. He really bodied most of these challenges. TJ tells Emmanuel that his prize is he gets to pick one person to go into elimination right now, and that's where the episode leaves off on a cliffhanger. Finale Part 2 was titled Only One Gets the Crown, otherwise known as the recap, where my audio is such bad quality and I'm sorry, and the floating mouse over the whole episode. I am such an unprofessional mess. We pick back up where we left off with Emmanuel deciding who to pick, and he picks Nerys, which was pretty predictable because she's the only person who wasn't working with him. She goes to a draw with 6 options, 4 names of the available players, and 2 chaos maces. The editors had no time for this draw. They sped through it with no suspense. Nerys pulls Mariah's name, and they face off in their big final elimination, which is putting 6 blocks in a box. And they really play up how hard it is to put these blocks in this box, but remember when TJ said this was going to be the hardest final ever? This elimination happens pretty quickly too, with Nerys whooping Mariah's butt at this. When I say this first elimination was rushed, they did Emmanuel's pick, Nerys's pick, the whole elimination, and said goodbye to Mariah in the first 5 minutes of this episode. So we have to say goodbye to Mariah here, who the show kind of shuffles to the side here unceremoniously, but did seem to have a major impact in the strategy of the season, with her having been apparently Michelle's close ally, and seemed to be someone who Michelle and Jay both respected. Her relationship with James was really the only reason why he lasted so long. Speaking of James, her main storyline of the season was obviously her ditching Johnny Bananas for James, which was definitely a downgrade. Like, James doesn't even live in the same country as you, but go off, girl, do whatever makes you happy. Other than that relationship, she doesn't really do much on this season. She goes into this one elimination and loses. So her stock as an actual competitor has fallen in my eyes, but her stock as a social player definitely improved because it shows that she was able to make strong bonds that got her far into the game. Though in the future, I don't think she'll be very popular with the vets who are friends with Bananas. And I didn't really talk about it much, but it still doesn't make sense to me why she didn't just dump Bananas and waited for him to find out through the grapevine that she was hooking up with James. So now that I think about it, I'm taking back her social stocks. But I'd love to see her back on the show because we definitely have a shortage of messy personal drama. Also, I recommend listening to the official challenge podcast that she was on because every time she's on there, it's really good. After Mariah's departure, TJ tells them that they're staying up all night long.
No one sleeping tonight. No one is sleeping. Staying up all night long. No sleep.
And he gives them some little tasks to do while he's gone. They have a task to each navigate their tiles out of the box in front of them. Apparently they did this during the Meet the Cast episode that still isn't on Paramount Plus. And honestly, to this day, did anyone watch that? The 3 of them who finish first can go relax with luxury items, and they can also sabotage each other. So they do their silly task and they reflect about their letters from home and their whys. Nerys comes in first and sabotages Emmanuel and Colleen, reminding Colleen that she's a... Nerys takes the blanket, Emmanuel is second and gets pillows, and Berna gets a little chair. Colleen finishes last, and they're all hanging out by the water. This looks quite lovely. They're not allowed to sleep, but honestly, if I were them, I just agree to all sleep and let TJ punish us tomorrow. In the morning, Berna is unhappy.
I'm losing it.
TJ shows up driving a little boat. I guess it's cool to see TJ on the boat, but there's no way they can hear him announcing the rules. They have to swim across the water and complete 3 checkpoints on an island to become the new champion. Emmanuel gets to land first, but they all seem to be about even and close behind, and they all get to their first checkpoint where they have to drink TJ's gross drink again, then rappel down a cliff. Berna gets there last and doesn't want to drink TJ's go-go juice.
I hate this drink.
Berna has a whole meltdown, but she drinks her drink, and she throws up to appease the puke lovers watching this show. Corey sees the heights of the rappel, and now he's crying and wanting to quit, and TJ's like,
Corey, what's the problem?
Then TJ gives him a pep talk, which is really just TJ telling him he's not allowed to quit, and Corey cries to TJ more, to no sympathy.
Bro, it's a little baby hill. Get your ass up here.
TJ looks like he's contemplating a new career with how pathetic this is. Emmanuel skitters down the rappel, and this rappelling looks pretty easy when he's doing it. It looks like assisted walking, but Corey and Nerys are falling all over themselves as they go down. Circus performer Berna zooms down and calls herself Lara Croft. They get to the next checkpoint with Emmanuel first, followed by everyone else. They have to create a tangram puzzle. Emmanuel, then Colleen complete this, leaving everyone else behind. At the next checkpoint, they have to chug another go-go juice, and then solve an underwater puzzle that has previous champions' names on them, giving us a cameo of Kina's name. There's a name you don't hear often, the OG queen of bullying when it was cool, possibly teasing a Kina return. I got so bored watching this, I googled where is Kina now, and all to say is Kina Allen, licensed psychologist for The Traitors Season 3, please. Corey and Nerys get to the diving challenge, and Nerys is terrified, but before she can conquer her fear, Emmanuel is done diving and on to the next thing, while poor Berna is timing out on the tangram and having to drink again.
I hate this drink.
The last checkpoint they have to do is a bigger version of the elimination Nerys is good at, but with 5 puzzle stations instead of 3. Nerys and Corey decide to work together to finish their diving puzzle so they can catch Emmanuel, who's stuck playing his Sudoku. They get there while Emmanuel is doing his first puzzle, and Nerys and Corey get to work. Corey completes one of his 5 tasks, which is hammering a barrel down flat. Elsewhere on the island, Berna and Colleen help each other to finish the diving puzzle, so now everybody is working on their 5 puzzle stations. The other 3 puzzles are the color sorting, balancing the equal stacks on their plate, and counting circles. I was going to recap this more of a play-by-play, but it ends up being a nail-biter with everyone except Berna having 4 flags. But Emmanuel gets a Sudoku and takes off, and Nerys takes off soon after, and there's a commercial break. It was pretty obvious that Emmanuel was going to win, but during the commercial break, I really had hope that Emmanuel would get lost or take a shortcut through the woods and trip like Anissa. But we come back, and Emmanuel gets to the finish first, winning $250,000 and becoming the new champion, giving a nice speech about how his family doesn't have heat and he'll be able to change his family's lives. Nerys comes in second and wins $60,000. Back at the puzzle, Corey is stuck on his balance beam, and Colleen passes him, so Colleen ends up coming in third and winning $30,000. Followed by Corey and Berna coming in last. They all should have gotten money for completing this if this really was the hardest final ever. But let's wrap this season up by talking about our 5 finalists. Starting with Berna, who I was optimistic about coming into this season, and I think she really delivered. She comes into the season being volatile and apparently having a close friendship with Michelle, then feeling left out when she wasn't in the bedroom with her friends, and accusing the girls of laughing at her in the industrial-sized hot tub. By the way, it seems like they forgot that they had a giant hot tub, but that hot tub looked like a lot of fun. In the beginning of the season, Berna seemed like she'd be an early boot, but she was really protected by Michelle, with there being tension between she and Michelle, when Berna was obviously aware that she was at the bottom of Michelle's list. But Berna went on podcasts after the show, and she seems to still hate Michelle's guts about this to this day and is holding a grudge. I'd like to see that beef play out on future seasons. I'm shocked at her performance in this final, though, because they had to drink that drink over and over again, and I get it.
I hate this drink.
But you did it before, just do it again. It just didn't feel like she was really committed to being competitive and winning this, which is a shame because she had a chance, and who knows if she'll have a chance to run a final again. In fourth is Corey, and I feel like the show really tried to feed us an edit for Corey that would make us forget his behavior in the beginning of the season, but the reality is he really dogged Big T and Melissa, and it just made him look bad to have this petty drama with these 2 girls who were on their way out of the game, and it felt really like he was punching down, when at the time he was pretty much just the tag-along for the popular kids. But then he went back to groveling to the populars and rode their coattails to the end. And this is a knock on the editors, but I feel like they didn't know what to do with him in the finale, and they gave him so much more personal content than everybody else. They showed his childhood photos twice, maybe 3 times, but nobody else in this final got that much content, and the narrative didn't really make sense, saying repeatedly that he was going to win it and show people at home who relate to him that they can do it too, only to be made a fool out of by the editors when he couldn't do the balance beam and they were playing silly music. I actually do think that Corey has the ability to win this show under some circumstances, especially with the allies that he made here, but I'm not as confident as he is that he could win the next time. In third place is Colleen, who I said preseason was known for being a snaky game player, obviously with her experience being the mole, and then she lied about being the mole on her first season of the challenge. This season, she played an interesting game where she seemed to be playing the middle expertly, and I do feel like we were getting her point of view consistently in confessionals, but there were a lot of questionable moves where she was one of the people spearheading the counter alliance against Jay and Michelle, but then the time came for those votes to happen, and they had the numbers, but she just didn't vote against Jay and Michelle, and ended up being a big reason that Horacio and Neresa's side of the house were so screwed. It all did end up working out for her, and if she flipped, she may not have even made third place with that other group, so this was a good season from her, though I think I've seen enough from her, and she didn't do enough in the house drama-wise for me to want to see her take a spot on a future cast. Our runner-up, Nerese, started the season pulling out a t-shirt that said, "I heart to make boys cry," and I really had hope from that point that this would be a big girl power season, especially with there being only one winner. She gets into a relationship with Golden Boy Horacio, which provided the rare cute showmance content on the show, but also she wasn't afraid to have arguments, fighting with Colleen and Jay, and really keeping the back half of the season super interesting. In the game, she jumped ship on her alliance that probably would have been an easier trip to the final for her, but she stood up for what she felt was right, and the ends justified the means because she single-handedly eliminated 5 strong players and still made it to the final and won some money in the end. She's definitely going to be a staple face in the 40s of the show, and now that she won the $60,000, Olivia can stop saying she's broke. And finally, our new champion, Emmanuel. In my cast reaction, I said I felt like he would be one of the future faces of the challenge as well, and he pretty much dominated this season, doing well in all of the challenges, and being in the dominant alliance that ran the show, with his name pretty much never being in jeopardy. But with that being the case, he doesn't really do anything memorable for the majority of this season, with the only thing I'll really remember being that he cheated on his girlfriend. Though these days monogamy is a spectrum with these reality TV people, the show made it seem like he really was cheating, and then he had an awkward conversation with Colleen after they hooked up, which was weird, but he ends up dominating the final from the moment they become individual, and honestly he deserves the win for really schooling the other players here and winning fair and square. I think he's very silly and does bring a lot of messy personal behavior to the show, which I do appreciate in my reality TV characters, so I'd like to see him on the show more regularly. I also covered the reunion. Firstly, I don't think there was a dress prompt, but Melissa and Big T are wearing tiaras, and Emmanuel is in full Prince Charming drag, and he looks so good. Go off, King. They all get seated, Olivia walks in, and Nerese is breaking down.
I really did care about my friendship with her.
So there's a lot of challengers here to reunite, including the mercenaries, who seem to be there as hecklers and commentators because the producers don't trust the main cast to deliver. Maria Menounos is hosting. I'm usually very critical of hosts, but she seems very informed and well-dressed. Quick updates are that Raven and Nerese have upgraded from rivals to friends, and Horacio and Berna can't be there because they're off filming other reality shows. We check in with Emmanuel, who says 250,000 makes him a Romanian millionaire, and Devin says he's the winner of the losers. Nerese accuses Emmanuel of cheating at Sudoku, and he owns it and laughs it off. Tori says there should be a girl and guy winner every season, and she deems Nerese a winner. I agree. This gets into some time wasting where they bring out a balance beam so that Corey can take a crack at it, and it's like 6 feet long. He runs across it in dress shoes and dives off. He kind of wipes out and maybe gets hurt. Then they do some trivia about the challenge, and clearly none of the challengers have watched any seasons of the challenge that they weren't on. You think Callum knows what the first season of the challenge was titled? Be for real. They dive into the Fantastic Four alliance, and Maria asks the champions how they feel about Jay and Michelle, with Devin saying Jay and Michelle basically played a fine game, which reinforces what I said previously, that I don't think they'll be targets on future seasons because of this at least. Well, maybe Jay will be, but I think Michelle's good. Laurel is the only person that has an issue with them playing the game, but obviously Laurel just has an issue with Michelle.
You can try and rely on an alliance all you want. The bones of the challenge are you get thrown into an elimination, then you're going home.
I don't know what Laurel is going on here, because as long as she's been on the challenge, strategy has been an aspect, but everyone else defends Michelle. They touch on Raven saying Michelle and Callum were an odd pair, and Callum and Laurel randomly have an argument.
Shut the fuck up.
How do you know me?
We did a show together.
Who asked
you?
you?
Do this to multiple.
Somebody give her another wine,
chills,
please.
Laurel.
Callum says have another wine to Laurel, so is Laurel wasted here?
Honey, this guy not worth it.
Yeah, she's wasted here. Laurel is sitting on the couch like me, crying in the club at 3 a.m. Host Maria points out that the Fantastic Four alliance did nothing this season. Asif starts defending it, but Melissa chimes in to fight with Asif, and then Corey chimes in to yell at Melissa. Corey has got to stop targeting Melissa and Big T. It's a bad look. He's a bully. They get to a segment of chaos where they can answer fan questions or do a draw to not answer the question. Olivia goes to the draw and still has to answer the question and calls Asif thirsty. Big T shares that her family was supportive about her coming out episode. Corey gets emotional trying to apologize to Big T and Melissa, but it comes across as fake given that he was just screaming at them like 2 minutes before, and then he starts screaming and cursing at them again.
If you ever said somebody was harassing you, I would help you. I've acknowledged that I have hurt your feelings, Big T. I do what the I wanted to do. Did I call you?
You shouldn't be standing up screaming at a woman like that.
I will yell if I want to.
They show a montage of Nerys and Horacio's relationship, and after it, Laurel looks visibly sickened. Horacio FaceTimes in from wherever the hell he is. Olivia and Nerys squabble, with Nerys saying that Olivia wasn't supportive of she and Horacio, as Horacio stares on awkwardly on Zoom. They bring up Horacio and Laurel's previous relationship, and he calls her a good friend, and there's this.
Buena suerte, también.
Then they get into the Horacio-Olivia situation, with her saying he didn't tell her he was going on the season and him saying he changed his mind last minute. Kyland approves of Horacio's alibi from the sidelines. Horacio says he still sees Olivia as a friend, and Olivia gets emotional and apologizes. They get to the Olivia-Nerys friendship, and apparently Anissa and Nerys' brother were hooking up, and Anissa is the one who told Nerys' brother that Olivia called Nerys broke. Olivia doesn't deny this, so at this point I think we can close the case that she did call her broke. Olivia apologizes twice, and Nerys says she can forgive Olivia, but she doesn't see them being friends again. They play more silly truth or truth games, and Colleen ends up calling Michelle desperate under her breath.
I don't want
I think it was Michelle.
You call me the most desperate.
Oh, first of all,
Coming from you,
I've been fine with you, so don't call me desperate.
I just asked Corey what desperate means.
Then Colleen says she just didn't know what desperate means, so that pop-off was all for nothing. They talk about Asif saying he was going to protect Melissa, and she says he used her child against her, which I do think is a bit dramatic. And then Kyland and Asif pop off, and this is literally the exact same fight from that episode happening all over again.
Yo, shut the up. What are you talking? You thought I talked about your mom and you didn't do
They're all talking over each other. Maria is falling asleep in her chair, and the fight only lasts a few seconds. I hope none of y'all were on the edge of your seat all week about that fight. Darrell says he doesn't like Asif.
I call you TC. You're thirsty and corny.
Later, James apologizes to Zara for turning on her in the schoolyard pic, but she's not buying it and thinks it's all for TV. We revisit Corey betraying Big T and Melissa, finally diving into this officially. Corey tries to act like he knew what he was doing, but his story doesn't line up, and Devin calls him out for being messy and lying to everyone in the house. Corey again apologizes to them, and Melissa tears up, saying that she finds it hard to hate Corey because they did have a genuine connection when they were friends. Berna sent in a video message from wherever the hell, calling out Colleen for being a user. Colleen ghosted Berna on her birthday, and Berna calls her an ingrate. Colleen says she was grateful and insinuates that Berna annoys her with phone calls to talk about drama, and Colleen is so busy. Raven and Michelle also call Colleen a user. Then there's this.
Devin, how's your pullout game?
And Ed tells all.
Big T was ripping some ass in there.
They talk about Nerys switching alliances, and Nerys tries to explain herself. Michelle interrupts.
They kept trying to make me pick a side.
You
The game
did
for
pick a
you.
side.
First off, Michelle, shut the up. Respectfully.
Respectfully.
Like I was saying.
Nerys says she upheld her loyalties and gets emotional defending herself.
I was your friend outside of this. I've known you for 5 years.
But Jay says in those 5 years, they never hung out and is trying to discount everything she's saying. Nerys really starts crying, so Jay softens his approach, and Laurel isn't buying it. I found that Jay is really trying to weasel his way through this reunion. We get to a hookups segment with clips of all the hookups we knew about. Firstly, they discuss Callum's cheating, and he says he knew the girl for a few years and the relationship was fresh. Michelle says that she was misled and didn't find out he had a girlfriend until she saw the show on TV. Michelle says he apologized privately and wants him to apologize publicly. Callum deflects.
I wasn't the only one that had a relationship in the house.
That doesn't make what you did right.
No, I was the only one who was like, I do have something back home.
You didn't say it to me.
Laurel comes to Michelle's defense about this, and Michelle gets emotional. Callum gets emotional and apologizes, and it seems very genuine.
I've embarrassed you both, and I'm sorry.
All right, time to leave Callum alone.
Maria asks Kyland why he didn't tell Melissa he didn't like PDA sooner, and I think that question is unfair given that he explained his reasoning and his diagnoses on the show already. Finally, something juicy. Melissa reveals that Olivia and Jay kissed at a hotel and on a bus, and Jay is shook because he has a girlfriend. Nerys calls him out, and Jay is deny. But Olivia owns up to it, and Jay is still denying it.
You were so focused on my relationship, should have been focused on yours.
Mariah talks about how she and Bananas weren't in an official relationship and that Bananas was sucking a girl's toes on House of Villains, but Bananas still hates her and won't talk to her. Also, Laurel confirms that Bananas was supposed to be a mercenary on this season, but didn't come because of this, and apparently he also hurt his ankle. Mariah and James say they
Talk, that's about, it's too hard.
So I guess it's not really a thing anymore. They move on to Emmanuel, who says he told his girlfriend about his hookups after the show, and they broke up, and they show a clip of Berna and Emmanuel going to the bathroom and moaning.
He wanted to have soap.
She just gave him soap.
He took him.
Then they try to play a clip of a hot mic moment of Michelle and Callum, and she storms off.
I will not watch this.
But then after a commercial break, they tell Michelle that it's just a funny clip, and once again, she instantly cools it, and they never even show the clip. Where is the clip? We want the clip. Actually, I don't know if I want the clip. We go back to Big T and Melissa. Emmanuel calls them drama queens, and they own up to it, saying that they're wearing crowns to the reunion. Of course, they're drama queens. They talk to the vets a little bit, with Kara and Tori playing up their rivalry that doesn't really exist, and them openly saying jokingly, but I don't think that they're joking, that they want to be teamed up on a Rivals season. And apparently, episode 1 quitter Jess was hooking up with Devin and told Devin to target Callum in elimination. Then there's this.
Oh, like, I'm stripping you of the credit for that.
You can't strip me of anything, Nicole.
And at the end of the episode, they do a drinking challenge to chug a drink. I hate this drink. And Emmanuel wins. So that's the end of the season. This season started off slow. I wasn't loving it or hating it. And then there was like 5 weeks in a row with no eliminations. Once they started eliminating multiple people per episode, the season got much more interesting, which really speaks to how important the pace of these seasons are. I feel like they really hyped up the champions being a big force they'll have to get through to be the winners when literally none of the finalists had to go against a champion. Also, Emmanuel is a great winner, but it should have been a guy and a girl winner. Nuri should be a challenge champion. That's so annoying. That's all I have to say about this season. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this reunion and the season as a whole. I'll be back in April to talk about the Challenge All-Stars 4. Until then, I'm really heavily covering Survivor right now if you like that. If you're just challenged, subscribe so you don't miss my new videos when I'm back. Until then, goodbye YouTube. Goodbye Maria Menounos. Goodbye challengers.
Bye, James. Bye-bye, Jay.
Okay.
I like that laugh.